just start talking. Yeah. Let's. What will we definitely not talk about? Religion and politics. Let's go.
Let's do it. Yeah. Why not?
Let's see. Yeah. No, we probably won't talk about. I don't know. We talk about. I got nothing. How do you feel about World of Warcraft these days? I got
Sucks, dude.
Sucks, dude. Is this like Kyle unmuted? You're laughing now, Kyle. Is this unmuted?
Pardon me. There was a nice echo that resounded because I had multiple windows open. So we are now live on our channel.
Shit.
That was the first moment.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
moment
it was perfect. It was perfect.
Echo's not going to work with me again.
And welcome to our stream with Frosty. That's how it started. In case anyone wants to know how the energy is going to be in the room today,
yeah,
that's it right there.
Yeah, fuck wow, let's go. Oh,
this
man.
is the longest break I've ever taken from World of Warcraft.
Is it? How long have you not played it?
I mean, I probably from the 3rd month of Dragonflight. Like, I played a little bit at launch. I mean, if we count classic, it hasn't been that long of a break, but it's definitely my longest break from retail. Because Kyle and I, we did hardcore until Kyle died last year. And then we did a little bit of Season of Discovery, which I really liked, but we were doing hardcore so close to it that I was like, I kind of already got my classic fix by the time it came out. I think Season of Discovery was really good. I just played too much hardcore before it came out.
Yeah, hardcore was a great experience. A lot of my friends went back to play it and they got into it. Then they died once and they're like, why would I ever do this? And they just stopped playing. They're like, yeah, I'm out.
What makes it good? Like,
to me, I thought it was amazing. I was like so happy with it, everything else, but everyone just got so discouraged on that first death and they just bailed.
Yeah, I mean, it does remind you how long it took to do things in vanilla.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to keep it. Although I guess technically they let you swap that character over to a standard classic character.
Yeah, but you knew in your heart they were dead.
Yeah. You're not going to play that anywhere else.
Yeah, it's not the point.
Yeah.
It's not the point. But yeah, we're live on our stream now. Hello, chat. How we all doing? Dead King, what can you do? Let's just look over at chat. I'm like, okay, everybody's on board with Frosty's WoW takes. Cool.
Oh, great. I am creating an anti-WoW podcast with you guys now, apparently.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Look forward to when we have our WoW buddies on again to talk about more within.
No, man. I mean, honestly, I played WoW when it first came out, way back when, 2004, whatever, November, I think it was, or something like that.
04, so yeah, you were like launch of vanilla then.
Yep. And I played it for quite a while, all the way to Warlords of Draenor. And I think there's like this changing of guard where a lot of people started during that expansion and a lot of people left during that expansion.
Yeah, definitely. It felt, I'm with you. I mean, I had like quote unquote new school friends kind of all along the way. I picked up a bunch of new WoW friends in Pandaria. That's when suddenly I was rolling with like, it seemed like an entirely new crew in the game.
Did they do was that like one of their first Warlords of Draenor? Was that their first like there's no better time to play, get in the battle?
Sure.
They probably did that every time.
I know they do it every time, but there was a different edge when it came to like Lich King.
It's like going back to like whatever, the Outlands or something, maybe, I can't remember. And they started doing the weird time stuff, maybe. And then they did housing, or like the not housing, but you got the instanced area,
the garrison,
right?
Yeah,
the garrison, yeah. And I don't know, it just kind of flopped with a lot of my friends who were playing it together. But
yeah, my first long break was Cataclysm, but that was like, it was half I wasn't totally over the moon with the expansion, and half I was moving back to Florida from California, and like there was just a lot of upheaval, and I'm like, I don't need this right now.
Oh yeah, graduation and all that.
Well, I was also getting really into StarCraft with you, Kyle, because we were starting our StarCraft podcast.
That's true.
Oh, StarCraft 2?
Yeah,
I'm guessing. Yeah.
We were deep into Wings of Liberty and already looking forward to Heart of the Swarm, I believe. I almost said Heroes of the Storm because they use the same damn acronym.
Oh yeah,
Was
yeah.
that
So
wild?
you watched a lot of OSL and whatever it's called.
GSL. We were
GSL.
Dream
like
Hack.
3 years straight. I felt like we were a GSL podcast.
MLG.
We did other things, but it was mostly GSL.
It was so much fun watching that. And who was the guy from Evil Genius that was always up like
Huck?
what was that? I
Huck?
can't remember.
He was like the EG.
Yeah.
He was
like the NA guy.
Yes.
And then there was the dude that was the EU guy who can't remember what team he was on.
There's also Idra.
Yeah,
but Huck
Idra
was the one who was still winning even when Korean players started playing in North American events. Huck actually still took some championships. So because we went to I think it was MLG Orlando, Kyle. We were there in person, and I think that was the first MLG with Korean players where a non-South Korean player won.
Oh yeah, it was full of dreams. I had no idea what the business was behind the scenes. There was a lot of like golf agencies getting involved. Sell, buy. It was insane.
That was our first grift. You know? Now we've seen that. We've seen NFTs. We've seen AI. Like we've been through a lot of grifts since then.
Okay.
Yeah,
But,
been a journey.
and there were like legitimate agencies too, but there was so much like just taking advantage of young kids,
of course,
making no money, putting blood, sweat, and tears into this.
Well, and I have your first podcast here listed as it was February 24th, 2015. Did you do any podcasting before then, or was Mogtalk?
No.
Nice.
I turned that shit on and I was like, hey, Static Mate, you want to talk to me about this game for a little bit?
Rip it, nice.
We just ran with it and made it happen. No, like the streaming part, I wasn't even like, I tried streaming with Hearthstone for a little bit when it first came out, right?
Oh, hey, I did a ton of Hearthstone content. Yeah.
And then I was like, man, this kind of sucks. No one ever watches me. I stopped streaming. I went in and started playing Final Fantasy 14, and I got really into it, and the stream still existed, so I just used it to stream some stuff. And I was just like, it was right after FanFest, the first one, 2014 FanFest. And I was like, God, I am so amped to play this game for the rest of my life after that event. And I was so energetic about talking to people and everything else. Hey, I'm already giving you guys a podcast to answer right now.
Hey,
continue. I am recording, so
records are on. Keep it going.
Podcast. All right. So basically, at that point, I still wanted to talk to people about Final Fantasy 14 because it became an addiction. I've never experienced that before. I never went to a convention or a gaming thing at all, so I forced a podcast to exist for Final Fantasy 14, and I just started growing it from nothing. It was literally nothing. And back when I was trying to get guests on the show, no one knew who I was or anything else. But there wasn't a lot of podcasts out there for Final Fantasy 14 either. And I went and I would create characters on servers with people who were notable in some way, whether they're really good at their job, whether they did this thing in the community, whatever it may be for. And I made a podcast around it and just interviewed them. And I've been doing that for like 9 years. But luckily Discord and a whole bunch of other social stuff exists now, so I don't have to make characters and do this whole roundabout thing. But yeah, that's basically all it was. I didn't really know what I was doing when I got into podcasting. I just wanted to talk to people. That was it.
I feel like most folks don't, unless you're kind of in this modern age of podcasting where like really famous people are starting podcasts. And it's like, I'm sure, okay, they probably got contacted by some kind of studio that is basically making it for them. But yeah, if you're not already famous, like I would be like, who's not wicked famous and started podcasting knowing what they were doing?
Yeah.
I started with like a headset mic.
I got a headset mic on right now. Don't talk crap about headset mics,
well,
all
that's
right?
like a nice one. I had one that was probably made in 2002 that my mom had for work, and then she eventually replaced it, and that's what I moved to LA with, and that's what I started podcasting with.
Nice.
Okay.
So yeah, just like yours sounds good.
Mine sounds okay, right? It sounds pretty decent.
You go if someone out there has like the first like 4 episodes of our StarCraft podcast, it probably sounded like I was recording it on a Nextel walkie-talkie.
But that was the times, it was 2010, 11. No one cared yet.
That was the expected quality, yeah. 100%.
I was listening to Warcraft podcasts, which is like what inspired me to start podcasting, and they sounded great because they were being done by Scott Johnson, and that dude was like a super talk radio nerd, and he and everyone that he worked with had professional grade microphones, and it was also like that. A bunch of the guys that would eventually go and work for Twit were also up in the mix, and so it was just all these tech nerds that had. The microphone that's sitting in front of me because I bought this model because that's what they were all using.
Oh,
I've had this thing since 2013.
Sounds great.
I think. Kyle's, yours is even older.
Oh yeah, no, mine was I bought it with a scholarship that I got in college because I was looking into getting into voice acting, and then I realized I'm dyslexic and I can't read very well in cold auditions. So Garrett was like one of the few guys that knew. He was like, "Hey, this guy's got a decent microphone. What's he doing with that in Chicago?" I'm like, "I'm trying to get Second City work." And they're like, let's do a podcast. It'll work out great.
I had a second code for the StarCraft 2 beta, and I knew you liked it. I was like, "Hey man, I'll send this to you, but you have to podcast about StarCraft with me."
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That was the catch. I'll get you in the
sell.
beta, but you got to make content with me.
You just need. It's so desperate to find someone to talk to, right? You're like, you play this game. I will help you play this game, but you have to help me. Just sit here and listen to me talk or something. I don't know, and respond sometimes.
Did you? I'm not sure how you grew up, Frosty. Like, were you ever in like any sort of group content? Did you have a D&D group? Did you try and have a garage band?
I always tried, I guess, in some way. Like, I grew up a lot on the internet, dude. So much AOL, and I played like these crappy MMO games that you'd play if your computer was crap and couldn't handle EverQuest, right? Like that is Tibia was the one that I got into.
Okay.
It was trash of trash. It still exists and still people play it a lot, but like I just grew up in that stuff, and for some reason I always like got into communities somehow or another. I was never like doing podcast related stuff, but I was building like guilds, or I was doing something social in some way, I suppose. When I'd hang out with my friends, my preteen days of rollerblading down around the apartment complex and trying to get my extreme sport friends going and doing stuff.
Oh, sweet. I mean, but you sound like you actually went for real MMOs. Was there no Neopets in there? Was there no
Neopets existed somewhere?
Okay.
I'm sure. Community wise with gaming, I think that I always wanted to, right? I go into like a lot of my high school classes or something like early high school, and I would find the people who were like kind of nerdy or whatever, and they would play video games, and I'd try to like cozy up with them all the time. Otherwise I was just silent, and I had my long hair and I try to let it cover my eyes and try to just be stoic, I guess.
Aloof. Yes.
Yeah. My self-esteem issues were horrible back then, but I would always try to cozy up with them, and I found out they played Diablo or something. I'm like, "Hey man, you sound like someone I could hang out with for a little bit." I'll try to talk to them. It's so funny back then, like people who were like gaming and stuff weren't very social. And like when you tried to be friends with them, they didn't really know how to react or anything. It wasn't until I was like, I don't know, 16 that I found a couple of friends who were a little bit more social, and they wanted to do like game nights and come over to our house and play Smash Brothers and drink Coca-Cola and whatever else. And that was really important for my growth as a gamer, I guess.
You're sending me on a journey with this. Yeah. Did you move a lot growing up? Is that kind of where you...
Oh, I was poor as shit, dude. I bounced around so many times in apartment complexes, whatever it may have been, right? And so I would always have to make new friends everywhere I would go to. So yeah, moving around a lot.
My heart is pounding listening to you hear the story, because I remember just walking into new lunchrooms and just like scanning for anything that looked like I'd be into.
Magic cards?
Yeah,
oh, dude,
exactly.
I gotta know them.
And I found like Yu-Gi-Oh kids. I watched the cartoons, so that's enough. That's enough for today. Let's just go sit by them and be like, "Can I watch?" I'm not gonna talk to you, but I'll watch.
And the other thing was like, living in this like poor situation, and I didn't have like cable to watch like Adult Swim or do like all this other stuff. So if I found out someone like knew Dragon Ball Z stuff, I was like, I got to get around them because maybe I could get exposed to some anime. Right?
We found a second Kyle. Kyle and my entire friendship is me making like 90s Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network references and him going, what?
Oh my. The isolating feeling of not seeing Austin Powers soon enough was just destructive to my social sphere.
That I can get with because I had wicked overprotective parents. If anything was even a little off color, like especially if it was sexual. Alien, my dad threw that at me when I was 7. But don't you dare go watch Austin Powers. I hear they talk about that movies.
Is weird.
Yeah, my family fucked up once, and my brother and my uncle or whatever, they wanted to watch Heavy Metal 2000, whatever it was, right? I forget what it was, that raunchy, cartoon back in the day. And it was just like, oh, it's a cartoon. It can't be that bad. And then there's this scene at the beginning, and they're like, hey, this is kind of crazy. And then they unzips the shirt and just like cartoon breasts pop out, and they're like, cover my eyes and run me out of the room. I remember that very clearly. I grew up in like a mix of it, right? Overprotective in some spots, and then the other spot, my parents were too lazy to moderate me.
It was tough. It was a tough finding that the hypocrisy line sometimes, or just like what the through line was. You're like, what's wrong with this? Why is you being hauled off? What's wrong with that? What I do wrong?
Yeah. I watch wrestling, but like Predator was fine. I'm like, first off, half the actors are wrestlers. Second off, so much worse than what's going on with Mankind and Stone Cold right now.
Yeah. Man.
It's interesting. That's wild. I love talking about formative content creation years. Like, how did you, because, oh God, I remember struggling so hard to get guests. Like, so if you were in 2015.
Yeah. A Realm Reborn. That's the end of A Realm Reborn.
Landscape wasn't that much different than it is now.
Discord wasn't that big. Discord wasn't big. Yeah,
that's true. But Twitter was fully established. Instagram, Facebook.
I didn't use it until I started streaming.
Because I remember when we were in 2010, 2011. Like, just I had no idea how to get in touch with anybody, and everyone was different. It was like its own little A, B, C through Z test of like you try and get them on their email, you try and get them on their Twitter, you try and get them on their Facebook, and you just find where they actually respond, or they tell you to go away, you're annoying.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it was getting guests. It was this whole mix, and so I started off just getting my static mate to come on and talk because I just wanted someone to talk about this stuff, right, and put it on Twitch. Twitch was still kind of in its younger years, I guess, right. And so that was the whole point, was to make this little podcast on Twitch and talk about Final Fantasy 14 news and things like that. And so we did that, static mate. Then I had a couple people who were watching who were on the same server I was, and they're like, hey man, I'll come on and we'll do some podcast stuff. I was like, sure. It didn't work out. They eventually just got bored of it and left, I guess. But I was like, no, I'm going to keep going. So it just turned out to be Frosty doing this podcast after about a year or so. But I would go and ask people, like streamers and stuff, like Xeno was streaming. I was like, hey man, you want to talk about your warrior videos and everything else and your content creation? Okay. He never been on a podcast before. Like the whole Final Fantasy 14 sphere just wasn't used to podcasting at that point. And so I was bringing on these content creators from Twitch, and then, Xeno would talk about a whole bunch of hardcore in-game stuff. I was like, well, there's an interest there. Let me find other people who are specialized in different jobs or whatever else and other parts of in-game content. And then I brought them on. Like I was saying, I would create characters on their servers, and I would message their FC mates. I would find out what FC they were. I'd look up on Lodestone, find the list of characters in their FC, look for each one until I found one online, message that dude and say, hey, let so-and-so know I'd like to talk to them. Here's a way for them to contact me. And then eventually they would reach out. And they were just like, I just play video games, man, but sure, I guess. And then I talk to them. And I got, I guess, relatively good at people who are talking to people who are not used to talking on podcasts and stuff. They're not used to these kind of atmospheres. I mean, I I grew up in the hospitality industry. I talk to customers. I talk to people all the time. It's just something I was used to doing. So I guess it just transferred very well. And that grew to a point to where that stuff didn't really matter anymore. And it was very easy to start contacting people and find it. If someone was like known for something, there was a way to contact them that wasn't that difficult. I find it harder to difficult people who are too famous now, right?
Well,
you know, you send them a message and there's like 5 agents you got to go through there, whoever, you know, in order to get to the actual person sometimes. So it depends. Although, like, it's weird. Like when I interviewed like Amanda Aiken, for some reason I keep messing that up.
It's Aiken because I kept saying Akin, and I was corrected by her directly.
Yeah, I'm sure she corrected me. I'm sure too. But you know, I just reach out and they're like, yeah, sure, I'll come on and do a show. And I'm like, it's weird to me, right? Because these people are Jason Charles Millard, a super famous guy who I've listened to his music back in like the 90s, right? Will come up and just do a show with me because he's in this sphere of Final Fantasy 14 now. And so it's a lot easier in a lot of aspects. Some still a little hard, but most people in Final Fantasy 14 are up for talking. They love, if they do stuff in this game, they want to talk about it. It's like I got someone on for Chocobo Racing, and he's like, "Dude, I didn't even know people cared about talking about the city." I did an episode on it. This guy was a specialist in it, and it worked out okay, I think.
That's so unique, right? Like how many people are out there that could claim specialists to Chocobo Racing? Like, why
not many?
Of course.
Yeah,
so
this one dude. But yeah, I don't know. It just kind of naturally grew, and at the first it was weird just because people weren't used to it. They weren't used to podcast and the whole concept and everything of just something specialized with Final Fantasy 14, people approaching them about it. They just liked the game. They just like doing it. And it just worked out in the end. I don't know. It's evolved a lot, like you said. It was different back in 2014, just enough. You know,
I'm enjoying your journey. I'm on a scroll right now through your YouTube, and just looking at thumbnails, I can see when the thumbnails come in, when they left, when you got frames. I remember that age. We're like, we got to have everyone with frames and names in them. Yeah. And then I see your green screen come in. I'm like, oh, I remember that pressure. That was weird. People just show up in your stream you've never seen before, and you're like, don't you have a green screen? You're losing stream real estate, and you're just like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. I'm sorry, viewer.
Yeah, it's weird. There's never a right answer to it. It's just whatever you want to do. Like I went back to the green screen recently just for the fun of it. Then try it out. I did without a green screen for a good bit too. The current layout of the podcast for Mogtalk is inspired by Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Whoa. And if I could literally get people in TVs like up there, if I could make that happen and look really cool, I'd probably do it, but I'm too lazy to do it. But
go on Facebook Marketplace, find like 4 CRTs for dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Go for
nice.
it.
Yeah. Just being in like a desk, right? And just kind of having that whole interaction.
If anyone in chat knows, there's a Gunpla. I don't know if he's a streamer or a YouTuber, but his overlay is CRTs. Like,
is it?
He has a camera pointed at a stack of CRTs, and he's got his head on one, close up on what he's working on another, and then a couple other detail shots. And it's like the coolest setup I've ever seen, but I don't know who it is, and I can't find him again.
If I ever got to the point of having a studio, I'd probably do some cool stuff, and I'd have like a TV back there with Twitch chat on it, and like all this stuff going around me. But podcasting doesn't necessarily make you rich, man.
No.
It's a free outlet. Yeah, it is amazing for like community because you have these. You're able to just have guests like we're able to do with you today. You know, like if there's servers, there's all kinds of logistic issues, and being like, you want to play video game, we'll cross pollinate, we'll make videos for each other's chat. You know, let's just do a podcast. Let's just hang out and we'll talk about things.
Yeah.
I find it's like because we do streams, we do videos, we do podcasts. I find podcasts to be like the most comfortable place to start. and then find out if you want to like collab on other stuff. Like, and
Oh
you get
yeah.
a good sense of like someone's availability, someone's interests in doing other sorts of collaborations when you just kind of get to talk to them. Because
Oh yeah.
we haven't really talked. Like we got to. We're so late to Final Fantasy 14 that we're still catching up on everything, and then so much of it was just getting to Endwalker as unspoiled as humanly possible. That we watched no one's content like about anything, and so we're still meeting folks. And so like you hit our radar because, to the chagrin of a few YouTube commenters, we went to FanFest even though we weren't done because we didn't care. It's like it's there. Also, Kyle and I at the time we were like across the country from each other. We're like, well, if nothing else, it's an excuse for us to actually hang out in person. So like we saw you on stage. We're like, oh, cool.
Oh man, I love that, dude. I love working with Square Enix on those events. It's so much fun. I sometimes I'm like, why are they still inviting me to this? Because I'm like, I feel honored, but at the same time, like, I'm very judgmental of my own ability to do these things, and so it's weird that anyone actually wants me to go on stage and do those, like commentate on like PvP or whatever else it might be. But that's I'm glad you're exposed to me from PvP casting on a stage.
Yes,
it was very formal.
You were Rusty.
You were in a suit and everything. We were like, oh my god, he's untouchable. He's famous. We'll never have him on. This is too much.
He's on stage. If they're on stage, they're too important for me.
There's lights, and he says things, and lights flash, and he's got his finger on the pulse.
I suppose.
Yeah. We got there. We didn't even know that there was like any sort of competition in Final Fantasy 14 because we weren't very involved in PvP at all, let alone spend any time going and looking if there's actual like competition out there anywhere.
Right.
So that was our first experience of that. It was our first exposure to you. And then also at Media Tour, I think you were the first person to like go out of your way to say hi to us.
Oh, was I? I thought somebody else did.
It was you or Cider. I can't remember.
Or maybe it was Happy. You know, he goes over and shakes everybody's hands too. So I don't know.
The circle was forming. It was a social circle. We're all very accustomed with this from high school dances, and we, slowly introduced ourselves. And then some absolute, like, just amazing social person would just run in and like meet everyone standing in the middle of the circle. And I was just like, that is beyond my skill. You're amazing.
Then the event happened, and we barely said another word to each other. So we're
it's done.
We got to work. Everyone got busy.
Yeah, I mean that's just how it's interesting. The difference between FanFest and Media Tour, right? FanFest is like overwhelming, and if you do like content creation, Final Fantasy 14, that you're talking to person after person after person after person, and you're just going through all these waves of people, and it's just over like that, and you don't have the time that you wanted to spend with people or anything else. And then, but Media Tour, you get that moment before the event happens, like these evenings, you're just like, what do I do? And it's just a bunch of content creators for Final Fantasy 14 are in that sphere in some way. And you just hang out with them, and it's awesome. Because it's a lot harder to do that over at FanFest because everybody's just so busy. I remember Zeno and Arthur's just sitting there with lines forming in front of them with autographs and everything else. It's just like weird. It's just such a weird feeling. And I felt that back in 2016 for the first time, and that took me by surprise completely as well. Because you get the small moment of fame at FanFest. You don't get that anywhere else. None of us are important anywhere else except for at FanFest.
I saw Jesse tweet yesterday that someone noticed him while he was out, and he felt bad because I think he was like, it was laundry day and he was wearing like an old shirt or something. I forget his exact tweet, and I was just like, I think I've been recognized not at an event twice in my life.
I purposely don't wear Final Fantasy 14 shirts usually outside of when I go out in the world, just because like that starts the connection, right? And then they think Final Fantasy 14, they see me, and then maybe it could. So I don't wear those shirts as much out in public because every time the topic comes up, oh, you play Final Fantasy 14? I'm like, yeah, I do. It's cool, isn't it?
I would go the other way. I wouldn't wear it because I don't think I could take the ego hit if they were like, "Oh, you play Final Fantasy 14," and then they just had no idea who I was. I don't think that I could handle that. Yeah.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, that happens to me plenty too. But.
So you mentioned 2016. Was that your first fan fest?
First was 2014.
Okay.
So 2014 happened, which was the first fan fest ever for Final Fantasy 14. And it was just a magical experience. First time we saw the Primals as a band really out on stage doing stuff, and I was blown away. It was insane. But 2016 was the first time that I went to FanFest after content creation. And so that's when I started talking to people, and people knew who I was at the event. 2018 was the first time I was on stage and I was doing stuff. And that was such a weird year. Because at that point, I was just like, how did I even get here? Because I went on stage for PvP in 2014 for a North American one. They invited me to Europe, and I did it over there in Europe, too. So that was 2019 Paris. On my birthday, I did commentation on PvP. And then Square Enix reached out to me about a video I made, because it was so difficult to explain PvP, and I didn't want to do it on stage because I didn't want to mess it up. So I just made a video, like a 3-minute video, explaining the PvP mode and everything else. And I used that NA and EU FanFest, so I didn't have to do that on stage. And they're like, yeah, this is cool, let's do it. And then JP FanFest guys reached out to me, hey, can we use your video? And can you give me the assets and stuff? I was like, sure, yeah, here's the assets. You can go use this for your own stuff over there. And then they put my face up on the presentation during their segment. I'm like, I kind of was at 3 FanFests in a year in some way. And it blew me away, because I don't think that I ever thought I was that important at all. But now I'm just like in all these different places, being presented in front of like tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people or whatever for an official Square Enix event. It was weird.
That's amazing.
That's tends to be how that stuff happens. Like, particularly if you're and you are coming off this way, particularly if you're humble. Like you just don't you don't expect it to happen, and then suddenly you one day you get an email or you get a call and you're like, I'm sorry, you want me to do what now?
Yeah.
So PvP before Crystal Conflict.
Yeah.
All I know is scandals. So what
scandals? If we just go to any game mode anywhere, you use scandals. But yeah, Feast. What kind of scandals did you hear?
Mostly just win trading. That like the whole scene was.
Oh, that's just standard.
Yeah. But there was like this don't play atmosphere about it because of that. Because maybe the community was small. You'd go into there'd be the boat, the limbs of Ward.
Yeah.
Wolf's Den. You go in there, it was empty.
Wolf's Den. Yeah. So people would play it, and the thing is, when you get to the higher level of PvP, and this happens in like all games everywhere, but it's so easy to get there because not as many people play PvP in Final Fantasy 14. Once you get to that higher level, you get to this point to where you're facing off against the same people. And some people are really lazy, and they try to find the easy ways to kind of get their wins or whatever, and get their mount, get their accomplishments and stuff like that. So you have a handful of people who will go out there and do win trading, and there's not heavy moderation enough from Square Enix to just completely kill it. It's not like so bad that it's like everyone's doing it, but it becomes the repeatable phrase of why people don't PvP, right? Because it does exist in some way, and it has happened and it's gone unpunished.
Happened to me, yeah.
So that's what it is. And so you'll see that in probably Crystalline Conflict as well. You'll see that in like a lot of different other modes. It's any competitive atmosphere, especially if it's like smaller and compared to like others, you'll run into it. And the only way that you can handle it is to do player events and stuff. And they do have player events out there. There's a huge community in the PvP scene that just do their own events, and that stuff goes away, right? Because you have people actually moderating the stuff. I mean, Square Enix really needs to do some level of, I guess, GMs dedicated to making sure there's fair grounds for PvP, to just get rid of the conversation. Even if it's not happening all the time, it's happening enough to discourage people from trying.
Right, the stigma of it has existed enough, and now you've said that kind of continues into Crystal Conflict. But Crystal Conflict came out, huge, just like swaths of people. The place was packed. It was people were tumbling over each other to get in there. FanFest happens. How did you know what to do in there? How did you cast it? How did you train your vocabulary, your flashcards to know what to even talk? You sound like you knew what you're talking about.
I'm glad I did.
Very professional.
I'm going to take it back to Feast for a second, right? Okay, so I've never done commentation like that anywhere. Podcasting, sure, but never like professional like commentary. So I found out who my co-commentator was going to be, and I spent months just practicing and trying to figure out what does a commentator for Feast need to sound like? What's the pacing like? How do we say what's happening to people who have never played PvP before, right? And try to make it exciting at the same point, but also not bore to people who are like really invested in the PvP. It's this delicate dance. And so just lots of practice and trying to get this vibe of this back and forth of when we do commentary, what is it going to sound like on stage? How do we make that enjoyable for everybody? And so literally that experience helped me with Crystalline Conflict because I took some of those same aspects of what I've learned back then to Crystalline Conflict. And Brian Ricardo, who is my co-commentator for that one, I sat with him and I was like, let's get some VODs together and just do it, right? And just hear what it sounds like, what makes sense, when I'm controlling the camera, how do I control the camera? Because I had to control the camera too.
You were doing that as well?
I was controlling the camera on stage.
Well, you were an observer on top of having to do commentary. That's wild.
So basically, we got into this state of, all right, this is my responsibility. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fill in and put in kind of the higher level commentary that's going on and control the camera, focus on that. Brian's going to dive in a little bit deeper and give a better analysis of what's actually happening on the stage. So we just kind of made sure we knew exactly what each other's roles were and just played off each other then. And you can't really predict everything that's going to happen on stage. Like when you go there, everyone's trying to feel out what that is because Crystalline Conflict is not something that has a stage event all the time, right? You go to Counter-Strike, you go to a lot of these like other games, like really competitive games. They have a format that works perfectly fine, and people just go and copy that for every single event. We have to create that for Final Fantasy XIV, and so we spent a lot of time practicing. And when we got there, just kind of let whatever happen, and it seemed to work out. There was some stuff I had to correct on the stage when we were there, but people who were setting it up and. There's a lot of times I didn't know what was being shown on the screen, or if my screen was being shown at the time. So you go back and look at the clip, you just hear the crowd cheering. I'm like, I have no fucking clue why they're cheering. It doesn't make any sense to me, right? We weren't in a game at all. And then I turn around and I look, I was like, oh, they're showing my screen and there's a lot of people on it because they found out what server my character is on and they're crowding around it and doing the cheering. And so I just went back and made the best of the situation, and production worked. It caught it in their heads. Like, okay, now we know to put a highlight on this real quick, and everyone cheered. It was great. So, but there's a lot of in the moment figuring it out stuff, and maybe that's why they invite me back because. I can make it whatever work. It's not like I need things to be perfect to have a good broadcast. I know how to be flexible with a lot of it.
Yeah, that's always been live production. Like my experience, like I only have a little bit of experience doing commentary. I did a little bit of Hearthstone. Right when I was swapping over to Final Fantasy XIV, I finally got like an official like ask, like, hey, can you come do commentary for a Hearthstone event? I was like, cool. I am currently transitioning away from Blizzard stuff, but I'll do it. Let's go. But before that, I've done a lot of live hosting for like college events and stuff. And that it doesn't matter. Like I've done stuff at BlizzCon. I did that Hearthstone thing. We did our own like local Hearthstone tournaments back when Fireside Gatherings were a thing. And then I've done a bunch of like helping universities put on live events. It's all the same. All of it is as much prep as you possibly can, and then you get there, and there's like 20 things that are like definitely nobody even thought about it.
Yeah,
and you're there, and you got to figure it out, and that's how it always goes.
It feels so weird being live too, right? When things happen and you hear the crowd over there, and you get in the zone of casting, and you don't really, at least with fan fest, in my experience with that, is you get in that zone and you stop thinking about there's a big crowd out there and everything else. You're just doing what you practice doing, all right, and what you feel comfortable with, and you just go with it. Every once in a while, they wake you up and they're screaming or cheering, and you try to say something. Like I was just like, hey guys, cheer if you're from the Aether. Yeah. And you're like, okay, I guess that worked. Let me try it again.
It's something that does not translate to live streaming at all. Like you can't do round of applause. By a round of applause, how do you feel? It's just like by a round of
claps in chat. Everybody clap in chat real quick, and you don't hear it. You just see it. You're like, oh, hey, they did it.
Yeah. Like the closest thing to it is just like, is chat going by so fast I cannot read it? Like that's the only time it like kind of has that energy. But yeah, the first time I ever did a live anything with like a notable crowd, like I'm sure it depends on like your personality, but for me it was instant. I immediately went from nervous to energized. It was just like, oh my god, this is awesome. Like and to me it makes it easier, like when the crowd is interactive. That Hearthstone event I did was entirely remote. We were in a studio, but there was no crowd, and so I was just like, I'm like, sound guy, did you giggle at that joke? Okay, cool. There's a pulse. We're good.
Yeah, luckily when you're like streaming and you do that a lot, you kind of get used to that a little bit. So you're like looking for chat to anyone to respond to it, But I've trained myself in these events. Like I had to, like some of the preliminary stuff had a chat over on the side. It was all like in Square Enix office. We're like in this area and we're doing the commentating and everything. But I wouldn't look at chat. Don't look at viewer numbers. Don't look at anything. You just do what you do. You say your joke and you just think, oh, they laughed. When you're on stage and you do that and no one reacts, you're like, I just fucked up. It actually kind of, there's the other side of that is when you try to do something and everyone's just kind of like, you're like, well, let's move on. And you just try to get away from that moment as fast as you can. It doesn't happen that often, but every once in a while it can happen.
Big win. Oh no, Grahati was just on screen again. Never mind. Oh, that wasn't me. Oh, shame. I thought I had a real winner there.
Monitor.
Right. Oh, geez.
But the PvP came after you started doing the world's first stuff, because I see a video here from 7 years ago.
Dude, the world first stuff was a huge evolution of like Google spreadsheets to what it is now. The world race for Final Fantasy XIV basically started off as people tweeting. All right, they would just tweet out, "Hey, I got it first," and they'd post it on Reddit. "Hey, look, this team said they did it first. No one else is saying anything. These guys did it first, right?" And that was the world race for all of Realm Reborn and the kind of start of like Heaven's Ward and everything else. And people would just kind of post the stuff on social media, and everyone just kind of knew, right? And people just put social posts somewhere to say these guys cleared it here. No one's saying they did it before them, and so on. And that was what the world race was. And at some point, I was interviewing people. I was bringing them on. I was like, hey, you guys were the first people to clear it. What do you have to say about the tier? What do you have to say about this, right? And I would just start up the conversations like that. And I did a lot of shows like that. And I was like, what if I just put a Google spreadsheet together and put some times on it? Like when people are saying they cleared it and everything else. I mean, it's all like as much honor system as you can do. But we did that at the end of Heaven's Ward, which is the first time I put a Google spreadsheet with rankings on it. And after I did that, every single race, they're like, hey, Frosty, you going to do it again? Hey, come on, man. You going to do it? I'm like, sure, I'll wake up early and I guess search Twitter and search all these places and just put all this like effort into like finding out the moment people clear stuff and rank it on this Google spreadsheet for literally nothing besides just doing it, right? And so I just did that a lot, and it kept going. Every single Savage, every single then Ultimate afterwards, which was a funny race, the first Ultimate, but no, like it just became something that was expected of me. And I was like, all right, well, I'll keep it going. And then people wanted a stream event. I was like, I know shit about that. I'm not doing it. There's no way. How am I going to like create production for that? There's so many things I would have to think about and plan out, and I just said no every single time. I was like, I would do a horrible job. I'm not doing this, right? And then Method came along, and they're like, man, the world race is pretty popular right now, for Final Fantasy 14. Let's do an event. Let's do an event. Frosty, you're the world race guy. People come to you all the time. Let's put this together. I was like, you know what? Sure, someone else is doing all the work, doing everything, and I'm just coming on and commentating. And it's so it happens and the stream starts to go live and they're like, hey Frosty, how do I link your leaderboard to it? I'm like, I'm gonna track this too while I'm commentating here. And so I had to I was building a really crappy website. I had to reprogram my website about an hour before the event started. Start the tracking thing, and at the same time I'm just like swearing at these guys. I'm just like, this is not acceptable, this is not okay. And I'm just like so bad because I'm like, I gotta save the world race. I have to create a tracker really quick for this event and somehow track who clears what first. And while I was doing all that, I did see a lot of behind the scenes of how they were going to make it happen, how it was working, everything else. And right after that, I think Method ran into some issues within their side, and they were just out. And I was like, maybe I could do this, right? I saw all the pieces there. And then at the end of Shadowbringers, we did an official event with the World Race, which is grassroots, duct tape stuff together. I got everyone that volunteered to help and said, yeah, I kind of know how to send RTMP feeds, whatever, this way and make this work. And I was like, all right, well, we'll just figure this out. And somehow it worked. And we made an event. And afterwards, everybody's like, okay, when are you doing it again? Are you going to do the next one, right? You're doing the next race, yeah? And it's just like, now I have another expectation of doing a live stream event every single time the world race happens.
He makes content. I mean, you should make some content,
Yeah. And it was so weird because it literally is, I started it off making a Google spreadsheet, and the community is just like, hey, Frosty, go. They're just pushing me. They're just like, go do more. And I'm just like, okay, let's do it. And somehow each time I was able to make it work. And maybe that's why they keep pushing me, because they're just like, Frosty's got it. He'll figure it out.
Have you seen the meme that went viral over the weekend of the accidentally became important at work and now it's ruining my life?
What is it?
It's I've seen 20 of them already in the last 24 hours. It's accidentally became important at work and it's ruining my life. I did it. And then people are just posting characters. I just saw one with Anakin and it really made me giggle. But you're that person.
I guess so, right? I just and the Final Fantasy World Race scene, the big thing about it is that it's just this unique beast in comparison to other MMO World Race, which WoW is the only one people really think about, I guess, when they think about World Race and stuff. It's you can't just throw some stuff together with technology and you're like, okay, well now we have a World Race, we just copy exactly what WoW's doing. It doesn't work like that. It's this whole thing is mixed bag of tracking all of these teams that are in these different situations, and some reports you could get some places, some reports you can't get in other places. And unless you really know the players out there and you know everything about what's going on with these teams, you can't track it properly. So I've accumulated this unique skill to put together the only way that I can imagine the Final Fantasy XIV World Race working. And now I am constantly trying to figure out ways to evolve it and make it better in some way. And anyone that's trying to kind of come in at some point and do their own thing, they're missing 5,000 pieces of things that I've accumulated by forced knowledge by trying to put on these events, right? So
that's how it happens, right? So you were essentially I don't want to say bullied, but you were suggested into doing this content over.
I was inspired.
Yes.
Okay. I was inspired.
Okay, there we go.
Aggressively.
Would you say it's one of not to make you rank everything you do, but is it one of the more successful? Is it one of the bigger draws of things that you do now?
The biggest thing besides the podcast, right? That I've done. The PvP commentary is the other part. And it's funny, all this stuff kind of started from Mogtalk to podcast, right? I did a podcast where I interviewed PvP people, I interviewed world race people and stuff. So I got involved with world race stuff. I started doing commentary for the PvP stuff, right? It all started from me not knowing what I'm doing with a podcast, 100%. Just doing it. And since I became known and I was talking to all these people, it just like it starts branching out into these other things. But yeah, the world race is the thing that gets, I think, the most attention out of everything that I've done so far. I mean, a lot of times when I go and do PvP commentary, they're like, "Oh, PvP's in this game. Oh, who's this?" That's the kind of reaction. But the world race is like everyone kind of understands what's going on with the world race when it's happening. So yeah, I would say so. It's the most successful thing, at least with being known what it is.
Why do you think we content creators tend to work that way? Like we put ourselves in a corner. Like you like, because Kyle and me, it was the same thing. We were transitioning away from Heroes of the Storm, and he had slowly worn me down and was like, "You should try Final Fantasy 14. I think you'll enjoy it." Like, WoW sucks. My heart's broken. I'm never playing another MMO again. And I just wasn't interested. Eventually we started playing it, and then I liked it enough, and I was like, "Hey, let's, instead of just doing podcasts, let's try making videos." And so we got into this. Just wanted to make videos about Final Fantasy 14. And we made, a decent number, and just like every time we put one out, the comments were just like, "You should stream it. Why aren't you streaming this? You should stream this. Why aren't you doing a live stream? You should do a live stream." And
yeah,
like, I don't remember how much resistance there was on your end, Kyle, but I remember thinking like, there's two of us. You can't stream with two people. That's ridiculous. You know what you're asking of me? I'm not a streamer. I do podcasts and videos. I do curated content that, like, and then we turned the stream live, and we'd never seen that many live viewers for anything before. We were just like, okay, should have listened to this suggestion sooner.
Yeah. Final Fantasy 14, it's like, it's this cult to like people come in and they're like, "Hey, come play it. You'll be so happy playing this game. Come play it. Come play this game." And you're like, "Man, there's a lot. It just looks really weeby. I don't know if I want to get it right."
And exactly my experience. And I like anime, but
yeah, it's like it looks like just like a cat girls and all this. Oh man, oh god, I kind of don't want to be in there because then I'm gonna be kind of like that too. And
I'm like, listen, I'm away from having cute anime girls as my wallpaper. Like I'm almost 40. I'm married. I'm not about that life anymore. And then you start playing it, and you're like, "Shit, I'm having a really good time. This is
yeah."
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the only game I've heard people talk about like a vacation destination that they adore. Like they talk about like it's peaceful and fun, and it'll make you feel better. And I'm like, every other game I've ever played, people were like, "We're gonna get in there, and we are literally going to make these people just want to reject their lives because we're going to own them so hard." And like, it's all about getting one over on who you're playing against. But there's something about 14 that comes from a place of like peace. Maybe not right now at Dawn Trail. There's some people with hot takes and they just have to share them. But
yeah. But of course, you got an opinion. You got to make sure people know it. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's social media. So
yeah,
but
we didn't lay any ground rules at the start. We're not going to talk about Dawn Trail MSQ, mostly because Kyle and I haven't. We're not even close to being done.
Oh,
with it,
no.
Yeah.
Okay. No spoilers.
Yeah, no worries there.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you about all the wonderful things. Right.
Did you like it or not like it? I am.
Do you want me to answer this kind of stuff? Because
I'm curious if you liked it or if you didn't like it.
Okay. All right. So,
knowing, of course, you can't elaborate on why, but I'm just kind of curious about.
All right. I think that Dawn Trail has the best gameplay out of all the expansions so far. Nice. The battle content and everything else is better than anything that they've not like as a whole, right? As a whole, it feels like they're going in a good direction with a lot of that, and it's kind of gripped me, at least with that. I don't know if you want my opinion, like good or bad on the story, but I could tell you that too. But then I'm kind of warping your opinion of that already, aren't I? If I say it, so
well, we're participating in the internet. There's a lot of opinions already floating around. You can add to the mix, the
Okay.
The fine cake we're baking
I've seen hundreds of comments with people saying they liked or did not like it already. So it's like you're just one more.
So, okay, just one more drop in the bucket.
But in a suit. Remember that part. You were on a stage in a suit, and it's very important.
I was true. No, the way that I like storytelling, and like I loved a lot of the previous expansions. It gripped me a lot. I love people's faces melting off, things like that, right? You guys have passed those parts of the game, so I can say that. Okay. But like I feel like it didn't have the same aspects that grip me in this expansion. There was moments and that I felt were I was like pogging, right? I was poggers, guys. It was good. But there was a lot of non-poggers that was happening. And I feel like there was so much non-poggers, it overwrote the rest of it, okay? Right. It's like if someone tells you, and they say this a lot about Final Fantasy 14, like it gets better later. All right, if you don't like it now, it'll get better later. You can never sell me on something that is like 100 hours of content where 1 hour is good and then 99 hours is absolutely crap. Right? You just can't do it. And I feel like there's some sort of relation to that, at least in my preference of storytelling. Right. And so I'd love, I've had this conversation so many times. But yeah, I think that's about as good as I could dance around that without trying to spoil too much for you.
That was wonderful.
I can't believe you weren't going to share your Poggers deconstruction of
the
Dawn Trail
levels
with
of
us.
Poggers would have been
That
lost.
is my favorite.
Good.
Review of Dawn
Trying
Trail
to
that I've
relate
seen so far
to new generations out there, okay?
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep up with the times as best as I can. I'm an old man too. When you start telling stories about watching Space Ghost Coast to Coast, you're at a certain age range, right?
Yep.
People who respond.
We're playing MMOs, not Roblox, so we already know that we're in a certain demographic.
Yeah.
But I did find a video here that you made. Frosty reacts to Dawn Trail raid preview with the text image.
Don't do that.
That says same old. So I didn't watch this video, but
okay, I'll tell you. You want me to tell you what that was based on?
Yes.
They did a live letter where they showed the raid content. And it was the normal mode, the first couple of minutes of one of the first fights, right, in the normal mode, not difficult. And I looked at it, I was like, this looks pretty much the same as what we always see every single time. They didn't show us anything new. It's like 1 or 2 minutes into it. And I'm like, okay, I'm worried, right? I'm concerned. There's a red flag that's up. And that's all I meant to say, right? Is that this is concerned. And there's a good reason to feel concerned about seeing this. And then as soon as the content came out, and they had some interesting stuff in it, everyone's like, "Oh, Frosty, look, you're a stupid idiot. How dare you say anything like that? We knew you were wrong, you dummy. How dare you be concerned about how the content's going to turn out, you fucking dummy." And that's all that turned into. And I mean, I do think in the current raid content, there are some things like they haven't been very inventive with a couple of things, but I know that's later down in the expansion cycle where they're going to do stuff and everything else. I love this, by the way. I'm looking at my hand on your side, and there's a little bit of a clip where I bleed right on into your camera. And I'm just like, I'm going to get you.
Oh, perfect.
Look at that. Yeah.
I keep seeing it.
Yeah.
Sneaking down.
Yeah. Sorry, I just saw it and I felt like I needed to comment on it.
I can tell you do production. I can absolutely tell.
Yeah. But no, the content, I think the raid, I've only beaten the first 2 fights in the Savage tier so far. I do a lot of stuff in Party Finder, and so it takes me longer. And I also have an event I have to produce that takes a lot of time at the beginning of the release, right? And so I think this is probably some of the most fun Savage has ever been in the game. But there is like some stuff I'm like, I kind of wish they were a little bit more creative here and here, right? Would we see like creativity happening with Final Fantasy 14? I'm hoping they realize there's a lot more they can build on. And a lot of people were complaining about the DPS checks. So I think maybe Yoshida even said, hey, they do seem kind of low. They don't seem. Have guys seen that? Wait a minute.
Oh,
1 sec.
yep. We're inhabiting internet.
I think we're losing. I think we're getting interneted.
Are you losing me or?
Let's go.
Oh,
Let's change east.
sure.
Not me, right? Wait, oh.
There we go.
Did we get it?
There we go.
I think we're good.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Okay.
make a quick cut in our recording so I can come back and clean this up.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And then we'll also take a quick sec. Are we good on stream? Is
Looks like we're
yeah.
good. We're all better.
We back?
Much better.
Ah,
Excellent.
Okay.
Cool.
I mean, the storm is more or less past, but you know, sometimes it gets weird.
Yeah, no. Issues can happen way after storm goes. Once the ISP guys go out there and they start working on stuff that's broken somewhere else, they can F shit up somewhere very quickly. I'm very familiar with that.
I went out and got pizza last night, drove through some flooded streets, and there were guys out in cherry pickers in the storm working on lines. I'm like, y'all are heroes.
Yeah. People, it's money, dude. So I was saying that I feel like there's still a couple more inventive things they could do, and there's still a lot of room for growth in Savage and what they could change. The DPS checks still need to be worked on a little bit, I think. Although Party Finder is still having lots of issues with it, like players who aren't optimized and not doing things very well. But then you have to decide what level of difficulty should the content be for people who are not organized versus people who are organized, right? And it becomes a whole other conversation. But I feel like they're going in a good direction, and I'm very content with how they're doing raid stuff. And they're going to mess up sometimes, and I wish the race was longer, because I got to tell sponsors how long it's going to be. And when it's the shortest race it's ever been, it makes it harder to sell it later on. But yeah.
Oh, sure. All right,
That's... Sorry, go ahead.
Some questions about that, and I want to work towards talking about the event that happened last week as well.
Sure.
Was there ever a time where you feel like things were better? Like so many times when we talk about World of Warcraft or any competitive video game, there's like this golden age of rating, dungeon design, whatever it may be. When you say, I hope it improves, are you thinking of something in the past at all?
You make me sound like an old man and say, oh, it was the best that's ever been back in Midas and Heavensward, man. Those were the good days.
Okay, but that's interesting because it's a point of reference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how they've kind of developed rating in Final Fantasy XIV is they wanted to make really hard content in Heavensward for the people who are asking for it from the previous expansion, and they made the normal mode and the hard mode, the Savage mode. That was the first time they created that, was in Heavensward. So normal mode was supposed to be for the story goers, people who didn't really want difficult content. And then the hard mode, the Savage mode, was supposed to be that challenge for raiders. But then that first fight, or not the first fight. Oh, yeah. Well, it was kind of the first fight. Had this little damage dummy called Faust, right? Target dummy that you had to clear and do a certain amount of damage. And so many people couldn't get past that. And it just challenged people. And they're like, hey, you guys are really just not good at this game. You don't know how to do optimized rotation. You don't know how to do this stuff. You can't get into this content. You can't beat it. And then, the people who could beat it kept going, and they got to the third fight, Living Liquid, the god of all fights, right? One of the best fights that's ever created. And so many people couldn't beat it, and their statics broke apart, and they stopped playing the game, and so many other things, right? And then Square Enix is like, oh, crap, well, we need to, tone it down a little bit. So they went into Midas, which was the fight after that, and they had a really good, setup there with the difficulty and everything else, but it was still really difficult and then not accessible to a lot of players. So they went down one more tier of difficulty, and they ended up with Creator, which is kind of how they stuck with the difficulty afterwards, right? They've changed things here and there, but it's never really got as difficult as it was. And that happened for expansion after expansion after expansion, and they created Ultimate to kind of let people have a more difficult experience in some way, right? People who are still thirsting for that, I guess. And then Yoshida came out and was like, hey, I kind of wish we went back to making things a little bit more challenging and not as predictable and everything else, which he said in a lot his his panel over at PAX East, I think.
Yeah, that got
and a few
quoted
times.
bunch, and
Yeah.
there's so much talk about it. I mean, we were at the same media tour event, and folks were
Yeah.
still asking about it.
Yeah. I mean, and that was their plan. It's just make it interesting and allow them to make mistakes again. And so now we're hitting that point, and I feel like we are having that issue with some players who are getting into it. And this is the first week; it's supposed to be difficult. You don't have a lot of gear to kind of boost, your chances of clearing it. You're doing it on like the weakest you'll be in this patch cycle, and a lot of people are struggling with having to get the right jobs together and the right gear sets and hitting their rotation actually properly and everything else, and being denied clears because they're not doing it. They're just going in there and just free balling it and hoping it works out. But this tier does require a little bit of work, right? I mean, you can get lucky and you got good players in your group, right? And you got people who know what they're doing and you'll get a clear in Party Finder. But unless if you have like a static, it's a little bit more difficult to clear this first week. But that being said, the people who are in a static know what they're doing, and it's being cleared really fast for them. And it became the fastest tier that's ever been cleared for these organized players. And so,
I'm curious about this because this was our first time tuning into any sort of Race the World first. I was aware of it as a WoW player, but I didn't follow it closely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like at least keeping in the Final Fantasy 14 corner,
sure.
Like how do you think it's just the tuning is the only thing impacting how fast it was cleared, or is it also just this is an older game?
It was tuning.
People who are good at this are better at it than they used to be.
They will always get better, right? Players are always going to get better, and so you constantly have to keep up with them in some way without making it too crazy. It's still fun for other players. I think this is a fun tier, right? It's a lot of fun to execute. But the damage was a little bit lower. They did have an issue last expansion with the second tier where there's a 1% damage difference that really just crippled a lot of groups from clearing that last fight. And so they backed off from that and kind of got away from damage checks in some sort of way, I guess. And we feel like they haven't really fully recovered with that. But yeah, the tuning, if it was scaled a little bit higher, it would take these teams a little bit longer to actually get these clears because they have to optimize and figure out when we do this mechanic, how do we keep the maximum amount of uptime and not miss GCDs and things like that. And when that starts to come into play, that's when it gets really interesting. But I feel like a lot of groups felt like they didn't have to do it. And so they're a little bit disappointed with that. They just had to figure out the puzzles, which if there were more puzzles, maybe, it wouldn't be a big deal. But I feel like a lot of them just wanted more, right? Just a little bit more out of tier. It's still fun, but the overall challenge really didn't go up. The fun factor went up, but the challenge part, I don't think went up that much, if that makes any sense.
Is each expansion a big reset of that player skill from the design, or does it always seem like it's escalating?
I do feel like it's escalating in some way, right? Players are always figuring out. It's becoming more common knowledge what makes a good player good, right? And so I feel like this expansion, people were just haven't rated it a while, and there was a little bit of a dip down. Right, it's been over a year since the last Savage content came out. The extremes came out, and there was no damage check on the extremes at all. And so with the Savage tier here, it feels like still, right? Players went in there expecting, let's just go in there and free ball it, and it didn't work out for a few of the teams. Or not the teams, but I guess people in Party Finder. So yeah, the overall, so it's weird because we're talking about this in two different ways, right? The general common player skill, I think, might have had a little bit of a dip down, but the really serious team play and hardcore groups are still going up. So there is like this disparity between the two different types of players.
That's something that's always a conversation point, I feel like, with any kind of game, especially when there is a competitive aspect. And frequently when you say competitive, you think PvP, but in this case, we are talking about PvE, and it's the same thing. You have a pro grade performance versus the general player base.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been talking about this all the way since we had a StarCraft show. Like, you're just like, well, do you balance for GSL or do you balance for the 99% of everyone else that plays this game?
Yeah. I mean, it's also different talking about like, you know, an MMO that's not super competitive based, right? Versus the competitive nature of this game exists from the community. It's not built 100% for competitive nature. I mean, Yoshida recognizes the world race. You know, it's something he pays attention to. Everyone watches the stream over at their office when we have a world race, right? And so they know what's going on and what's happening and how fast these teams are clearing it. And so they do care about that stuff. They also want, you know, jobs not to be excluded when people do stuff together in Party Finder. They want to keep things balanced, and it does become this thing of how do we make the people happy who want their axolotl mount or whatever, right, from the previous expansion, and also keep the people happy who want more challenging content. And so they create all these different levels of content. Like they started Criterion to try to create another challenge for people out there in Subway, but you'd only do it once or you don't do it like at all because of the reward structure and a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, I think Square Enix is trying to figure that out for sure, how they want to do, you know, their development and who they need to make happy, because there's a lot of people who would be happy just with more ways to make nightclubs in the game, right? More content to like make that social aspect of role play and stuff a little bit more interesting. And so they have a lot of people to make happy. I think Final Fantasy, I could be wrong, but I feel like Final Fantasy XIV has such a huge variety of different types of players and interest in this game versus other MMOs. It truly feels like it's a huge expanded community where maybe WoW is really focused on raiding, and there's people who care about the story, but not as much as people who care about the story in Final Fantasy XIV, I think.
Yeah.
And so, and there's a lot of role playing that happens over in WoW, but the role playing scene here is different. I don't know. It's hard to really comment too much on WoW, but
I get what you're saying. Like, too, it's virtually impossible to quantify because you can't.
Yeah.
A real poll of all of the different player types across like those two big MMOs, WoW and Final Fantasy XIV. But I agree with you. I've always looked at, before I came to 14, I looked at World of Warcraft as like that was to me the first game I ever played that felt like it had a lot of different distinct player types that were really into what they were into, and they didn't interact too much with other aspects of the game. But I think there's many more distinct player types in Final Fantasy XIV. And I also feel like, and this is probably a bias based on how much I interacted with different angles of World of Warcraft, but I do feel like 14 services more of those different player types than World of Warcraft services those different types of player types. Because like I think back to like I had friends who were really into pet battles in World of Warcraft, and they'd go like a year feeling like they didn't get much new stuff to do, and I feel like story players, you know, every major patch you get new story, you know. Dungeon and raid players, you have a really good dependable cadence, which was another thing that I was pleasantly surprised to learn about when I came over to Final Fantasy XIV. I'm like, wait, y'all know how many patches you're gonna get before your next expansion? That's unheard of over in World of Warcraft.
That was
World of Draenor, where we only got one real patch. The other one was a selfie camera.
We relate to the whole World of Warcraft 2 Final Fantasy content pipeline, but we still were on the tail end of it. And one of the weirdest parts about starting this game was just this sudden, overwhelming YouTube complaint of everything's too predictable. And we're just coming from this land of chaos and unknowns and being like, what's wrong with that?
That sounds wonderful. It's still one of my favorite things about Final Fantasy. We have spent almost zero time as like current players. We had like maybe a month of having actually beaten Endwalker before Dawn Trail dropped. But like looking ahead to it, you know, once we're current again here in Dawn Trail, I'm like, that's wonderful. Like that you kind of know when things are coming down the pipeline, because that always drove me crazy in World of Warcraft.
People give crap to Square Enix for the predictability a good bit, and just like every patch is Savage is going to come out. Oh, well, they're going to do an ultimate here, maybe, I guess, and then we're going to do this here, and here. All right, but they do experiment, right? There's been patches where they came out with the original concept of Diadem. That was an experiment where you had dinosaurs on islands and giant meteors, and you get this pink level gear that would roll stats on and everything else, and it failed as a concept, right? And so that turned into something completely different. And they came out with Eureka, which was a multi-zone kind of thing that they've never done before. They had its own little system inside of it. That wasn't something that we predicted. They came up with Island Sanctuary. They came out with, Baja. They come out, they experiment, but they don't like experiment with the whole expansion. They experiment with like, here's a new piece of content. Are you going to like it? If so, we'll build upon it. And they did that with Palace of the Dead. It worked out great. And then they decided Deep Dungeon was going to be a thing they do, and they're going to start releasing it. They did skip an expansion, but it's content they can bring to the game that was originally experimental. So
yeah. And I mean, through Media Tour, they even talked about the new MSQ story arc like that. They were just like, we don't really know where it's heading yet. We're going to see what you all respond to and go from there. And I was like, that's cool. I'm into that. And I like that they're being open in that way.
So I don't know. I was there when Yoshida like heard that comment, and he responded like, come on, man. We're doing stuff. It's not that predictable. We're trying new things. But we're still harping on the stuff we know people love, because why not?
Why ruin a good thing, right? Like, Yeah. Like, again, we didn't spend a lot of time current in Endwalker, but one of my favorite things we've done is Boja. And so had I spent a lot of time current in Endwalker, I really would have missed a new type of that content, because I tried Island Sanctuary and I'm like, this isn't really my thing. And so I respect them for experimenting, but had I been stuck current for over a year, I would have wanted my Boja like content.
As a Final Fantasy XIV podcaster, I try to do shows on every kind of topic, and I will let you know the saddest one. Not the saddest one. All right, there's maybe some other ones, but we did one on Island Sanctuary, and everyone was like, it's Island Sanctuary. No one was excited to talk about it. No one was like, I was like, why did I even do this? Why did I make it's a big piece of content, and no one really even, it's like so struggable. No one really cares. I felt bad. I felt bad for the Lords of Verminion players, out there. Just like the pet battlers, I'm sure they're upset they're not getting new content. Although technically every time a new minion comes out, they have to put stats attached to it that go into this new mode. Right? There's still some coding and programming to it. So I'm sure there's some guy out there that's just master of Lords of Verminion. It's like, one day, man, they're gonna make some content for me, and I'm gonna be king of LOV, right?
We're gonna make the big esports out of it. It's gonna be huge.
It was exciting because you were just like, oh, it's like the StarCraft kind of Dota-like thing, and that was originally an April Fool's joke, but then it just became a real joke. And that was it. Right.
It's like you, Kyle, and your damn Doman restoration. I'm like, okay, there's an end to it for a reason.
Hey, man, it's a good way to level. All right.
Gotta throw that old gear somewhere as they all leave the party as fast as possible. I just don't click that fast. But do you like an answer to something like the DPS check? When the immediate your brain just goes, well, we'll just make a new version for Party Finder, and then we'll have Party Finder's version, and we'll have normal version, and then we'll have Savage version, and everyone's happy, right?
All right, here's an idea. You come out with normal version, then you come out with, you have Savage, then they make Mythic, right? And maybe they limit the players, right? They do a different kind of like limiting there, and they make it more difficult. Maybe they do another,
right?
So like, just go to WoW or rate. I don't know.
Is there a solution in your mind that you've seen in the past for what's going on right now with maybe that lack of checks or the difficulty of the checks?
I mean, it just takes Square Enix trying to keep it balanced. This was the first tier of the expansion with new jobs, and a lot of stuff they have to really clean up in order to have a real concept on the balance. They do a lot of battle testing before the expansion comes out, but there's stuff that's going to be missed, right? And after people play the game for so long and they start getting like real data from all these people who are like going really hardcore at all the stuff that's going on, it's not just their internal team, then they can move forward with it. See, and you know, it's different than WoW. WoW has like the servers they put up and you get to test all this data way beforehand, even though it's still broken as crap. But I mean, there's a lot more complexity, I guess, to WoW raids in terms of how many people are in there and all the add-ons and all the other crap you got to put into play with that, right? But with the Final Fantasy XIV team, they really get their first massive data set after the first Savage. And now that they have that, they can start tuning the next one a little bit better. However, with them trying to be more creative with their raid content, we'll see. You know, because every time you get more creative, less likely it's going to be balanced, and you might not you might make it too hard. Because if they make it too hard, that's a scary thing. If you make it too easy, it's not that bad. You'll have like the really hardcore people who might start to lose some interest, but you still keep the majority of the player base, I think. If you make it too hard, then we have what we had back in Heavensward, and people actually just bail. Because right now, in my opinion, without spoiling things, the battle content is the more appealing part of this expansion than the story. And so you need to like hold on to that pretty tightly and do a good job with it.
So chat's asking it right now, and this is kind of where my brain's going too. Like, do you prefer overtuned or undertuned? Like, to me, as someone who doesn't
overtuned, 100%. Okay, but I'm not the population, right?
Well, you know, I was gonna say, as someone who doesn't hit this stuff day one, actually, I just straight up, we haven't done a Savage yet. We haven't scratched the surface of this. But as we stream it, so we hear all the stories. I love it. We have like we get our own oral tradition from our channel. Like, here's what happened in the past in Final Fantasy XIV. And I love hearing about the times when things were just too damn hard, because it gets an air of like legend around it.
Right.
And so that's the way I lean. So I was curious if you had a preference, because to me,
I want
things really, really tough. That's when people remember it.
You remember it, and the races last longer, right? Like, you keep the stream up.
Good for sponsors, maybe not the best for your well-being.
If you know it, not really. I just need to get enough people like on the team where I do nothing during the event. I'm just there as a figurehead, right? That is my goal at some point. It's just to be the guy that exists and has no responsibilities when the event's actually happening. That would be fantastic. I have never been able to hit it, but one day I will, and then I can go enjoy the event myself, right? And I just go enjoy it.
You should treat it like, if it ever starts getting real long, you treat it like one of these like endurance races for cars. You hold it in one location at like a hotel in a ballroom, and you invite all these casters, and they have places they can go sleep, and you work shifts.
Yeah. So the top race, the Mega Protocol, was an ultimate race that was the first ultimate one that we did. Well, we did Dragon Song Reprise. I wasn't a part of that because my daughter was just born, and I was like, guys, I'm out this race. There's a clear cut. I'm done. I can't do anything this race. I'm out. I have a 2-month-old. I have to take care of them. I can't do a lot of stuff for streaming. I have a job that's working me like 80 hours a week. I just can't do coverage on it the same way that I do with Savage, because ultimates just take a long time. But we had a team that put together some stuff, and they actually did like a 4-day, like come online for 8 hours, go offline for a handful of times, but the fight still wasn't beaten. But we did the Omega Protocol with I took a week off of work. There's my PTO. Yay. All right. And so I took a week off work to focus completely on that. And we did 6 days as our limit, and it kept going. And we had to end the stream before it was cleared. Because we just didn't have the resources for it anymore. And it was extremely successful, because that was the first time we started like incorporating like major sponsors and everything else to try to like give rewards out to players. And so it worked out very, very well for a 24-hour event for 6 days straight.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, you just there's a way to like make that happen. We didn't do it during that race because we're like, okay, these 6 hours, people are just not going to raid, right? So when you think about doing a 24-hour event for the world race, you think, all right, well, everyone's waking up when the servers go, and they're going to stay awake for 16 hours, then go to sleep and wake up, and so you'll have that 8-hour period of just no content, a little bit of overlap here and there. So maybe 6 hours of just, we don't need commentators, we don't need anything. But a lot of prog happened when we had no commentators on. Because the different regions actually had, they would start a little bit later and then end a little bit later too. And there was just this weird overlap, which I wasn't expecting with overly competitive teams, where we constantly had someone progging some new piece of mechanic every hour of the day. And so luckily, this is a world race, literally, in that sense that we have people from Japan, we have people from Australia that could cover those shifts, right? It's comfy shifts for them. We have people in different parts of the world, in Europe and everything else, that could cover shifts during that time. So if you involve people from all over the world to do casting, you could cover a lot of these shifts. You just need to be lenient, right? You can't have like the 6 golden commentary casters that would ever exist. You just bring on the Final Fantasy XIV community that wants to come on and talk about the stuff and just hang out and see what's happening. And that's how I've kind of framed the event over the years. And that's why we had 30 casters for a 9-hour stream.
All lined up.
We had 3 days lined up and prepped for, because there's 2 things this race could have had. Undertune, where it was done really quick, or overtune, where it was going to take a really long time. So we planned out 3 full days of content. Yeah. And we only got to get 12 hours out of it, plus 6 hours of pre-show.
You deserve so much respect for that.
It's sad because there's a lot of people who wanted to commentate. Their shift never came up. You know? And it's hard organizing all those players too, because you just can fit people in when you can, right? When they're available. If they're not available during the time that the fights are still alive, then they may not see it if it's not a 24-hour event.
Yeah, so. I mean, we tuned in because, like I said, we never watched any of this type of content before, and it like worked out perfectly. It was a day where we're like, oh, cool, yeah, we can totally tune in and kind of look at this day. We'll look over patch notes while this is going on. We didn't expect at all that it would end while we were watching you like on our stream.
Wow, dude, that was so painful, man. It was great. Like, that will never happen again. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we will have another 20-second, like, photo finish kind of race going on. But I was like, my shift's up. I've been doing all this background work for so long. Let me just like cast for a little bit. Just talk about stuff. This is exciting. And I came on. As soon as I came on, the clears start happening. I'm like, crap. All right, well, let me see who was first. Wait, they cleared it in the same minute. Then I have to go live on stream, look at the VODs, analyze as much as I can to see, accounting for stream delay and everything else, who was first, right? And it was painful because I just wasn't prepared to do all that stuff live on stream. There was no plan to do it because it was never something that would be expected. Now we have to put some sort of contingency in place. Hey, if people clear in the exact same minute and Frosty's on stream, what do we do? Because he has to call it. And so the amount of stress and panic I kind of had while trying to figure out, well, I want to entertain the people who are watching, but they're also all just waiting for me to fully analyze this footage. And luckily High Jump and Evan were able to like kind of cover for me a good bit on that. But it was,
you should just get dramatic music that you play while you're
slowly
and
zoom
just
in
keep it on my face.
Yeah,
100% on my face. And I'm just.
I mean, we were all there with you at home. Like, we were going around. Wait, is there a VOD there? Where can we find this VOD? Chat, do you have the link? And we're all looking for our own VOD.
DMing these teams because it was offline teams for the first 2 clears, right?
Yeah.
I'm DMing them both. I'm like, hey man, you got the VOD? I need the VOD immediately. I need it as soon as you can give it to me. I'm just sitting there like they're like, why do you wait? What? And they're like, kind of like, why do you need this so quickly? Like, I'm just like trying to convince them, like in these DMs and everything, to just give it to me so I could go and look at this Eorzean time that kind of gives you a sense of the seconds. You know, I'm gonna let you guys know. People are gonna kill me for this, but I had no clue Eorzean time was synced over all the servers, over everything. That was a global time.
Either. That's a thing.
Yeah, that was the thing. That's why we could use the Eorzean time, is because it was just synced everywhere. All right. And so it gives you this kind of sense of ways to like track the time. And everyone in chat was like, look at the Eorzean time. What are you doing? I'm like, guys, just let me go. I'm doing my whole thing. I was going to basically go back to when the second, like the minute flipped on their screen for the local time, and then put a timer up to it and start a stopwatch so I could have the seconds and play the video at the same time. And I was like, holy crap. I was like, chat, shut up. I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, and why would that come up? Because you've never had to deal with something this close before. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, the minutes haven't been matched up. That was so cool, and something that I didn't fully understand until I was off stream for that day. Now I feel this is the first time I felt bad about like my flipped it like takes live on stream when it happened, because I've had like a few people like comment after me for my Race to World first takes after the last week.
Oh yeah.
Afterwards, I was reading up about it. And I was like, "Oh shit, they've never been this close before. Oh, so we saw something really cool, and I just didn't understand."
Yeah. I mean, everyone was taken by surprise with it, man. And I mean, the only way. So if we're going back to WoW, like there's tons of like plugins and there's tons of like add-ons and stuff and tracking and ways to like figure out the timestamps a little bit more accurately there. In Final Fantasy 14. That is like a no-go from the developers, right? They're like, you can't use anything. It's still out there, right? It's standard stuff that you upload things to websites or whatever, and you can get it. But that stuff wasn't even really working for most of the race in general. And there's a different culture understanding of what's acceptable and not acceptable over in Japan too. There's a lot of people who are like pure, like we respect everything Yoshida says. We're not going to do anything against what he says. So the only way to tell those times is to look at VOD footage. That's it. And if they're offline, you have to tell them to give it to you. They have to offer it up. You can't just look at a screenshot and tell. And so that makes it a little bit more rough. Luckily, the people who were streaming, it was easier because I could just look at their VODs real quick and get it. But still.
Well, do you want to hear, Kyle, my hot takes that got us in trouble?
Yeah, which one? Yeah, please.
Because now I'm anxious to hear your thoughts here, or if you don't want to give your thoughts.
Okay.
So our first Race the World first, and so we're watching and we're having a good time. We're like this is cool. Like we were really impressed by the production. And the more and more we learned about how much it was just a truly just a community effort. Like you have to go and just yourself figure this stuff out, make this leaderboard. Because like you said, there's nothing, even if there are those plugins, like this was patch day, like any of those unofficial things that you shouldn't be using, they probably broke with the patch anyway. Yeah. So we're watching that, and then the world first clear comes in. We're like, wait, it's offline, and Kyle just goes, it's probably because they're cheating. You shout that.
Typical Final Fantasy 14 Andy there. Just they're offline, they're cheating. I mean, it's the same thing with the PvP, like what we were talking about earlier, right? There's enough of it, and it's happened. And if they're offline, they probably have access to data, like data mine stuff, but that stuff's not like private for the most part. There are some people who like have really good data miners who will try to hoard that information, but it's not like information that is not able to be public. Like there's people who will just post that stuff out there so people will know if they really want to know. And then there's the sense of like, if you have this extra plugin, it will tell you stuff that you really didn't know, and you could add in these extra shot calls and everything else. But in a Savage race like this, it usually takes more time to implement that stuff than it actually matters for a lot of people, at least in the Savage races for sure. And so when they're offline, there's a couple of different reasons why. The main reason is they don't want to give away strategy. They want to hide the strategy. They want to make sure that the way that they figured it out isn't copied by another team, and then they get ahead. which doesn't really matter in an event where people don't go to sleep. When people go to sleep, it matters because, you know, the team waking up later will just take your stuff and they'll get more prog faster by having that information. So Ultimate's going to be a little bit weird in that sense. But with Savage, since it's done so quickly, no one is really going to try to take someone else's strat and implement it into their strat unless if they have to, because it kills time to do something in a different way a lot of the time as well. Because there could be multiple answers to the strategy or multiple answers to the mechanic. And so the teams who are doing it offline, they're kind of trying, the main goal is to hide that strategy, right? To give them their advantage. The secondary part is that there are things for people who are really competitive. They don't want to show the parsing stuff that they have that's not technically allowed, but every single raider in the world probably does, except for me, because I'm a streamer, not a raider, so I don't do it. I'm smart.
Yeah, like they're probably running damage meters, which like I don't care. Like,
I mean, and it doesn't really matter, right? The stuff that, so when you get into like what is cheating and what's not cheating, Yoshida says everything that's third party is cheating. People take that completely for word, and then that's it, right? But in the sense of like raiders who are out there and competing against each other, it's always, what do the people who are racing each other consider cheating? Right? What is actually cheating out there? And teleporting around mechanics, oh, that's cheating. That's obvious, right? If someone's doing that, completely cheating. If they get information from data mining stuff, people will say, hey, maybe that's cheating, right? They pulled this information. They're not allowing other people to see it. That's considered a level of cheating to some people. But if it's public and everyone already knows it, it gets into this messy gray area of like what is really cheating. But what people want is people to log in and do the content as is presented by Square Enix. I would love that too. All the people who race would like that too. But when you're really competitive and you know there's teams out there who might have an advantage because they get information from like a third-party tool, then you're like, well, we're just kind of screwing ourselves in this competition because no one's ever going to really change the way they're doing this. But this race, it didn't matter at all. Right, Lucrezia, 100% nothing. They are a pure no third party, no anything team. They streamed their entire prog, and they beat Echo by 20 seconds, and they were behind the world first and world second team by like 9 minutes. Right, so it didn't even really didn't even really matter in that consideration either. If they're offline, it doesn't mean they're cheating. It just means they don't want to show you their footage for the most part. And it does get messy because you can't prove, like, how do you prove it, right? How do you prove they didn't use some crazy third-party tool and everything else? So the event that I put on only rewards streaming teams that sign up and make their footage public, right? I will say, hey, yeah, they clear it first. I'm not going to say they're a cheater, but unless if you don't have verifiable proof that your stream was up the entire time, which you can hide stuff while you're streaming and everything else, but you can at least analyze the footage and see their movements and make sense of how they're working out mechanics to see if something's goofy or not, right? You have something to verify.
Yeah, some of the more egregious examples, like camera mods too, like being able to
zooming all the way out. Yeah, bring that back. Yeah,
that's really obvious if you're doing that. That's the kind of thing you can't necessarily obscure.
So, I mean, you could have another player who's in there and who is using it, and then one player who's streaming who's not using it. But for the general sense of things, it adds some level of verifiability to it. And it's enough to be able to reward these teams. And if they're not going to stream, I won't give them rewards, but I'm not going to discount the fact that they cleared it. I'm not going to call them cheaters just because they're offline. That feels I don't know, guilty. What's the phrase? Innocent until proven guilty kind of stuff is kind of how you need to like take that.
That's all right. Kyle's got you. Kyle will call them cheaters.
You can call them cheaters, and I'll be like that idiot who doesn't play this game.
Yeah, and I'm just, and I'm just a viewer. I'm just a consumer. I'm just saying what's on everybody's mind. Like I have all these wonderful outs, and of course, as you just mentioned, like it is very muddy. Like what happens if one of these absolutely just 100%? I never use mods. Is up on a hill preaching to the crowd. We never mod, but they go and they run Crystal Tower for the 1,000th time, and someone has a mod that captures their name, and now they're on a website. Does that mean that they cheated and now their data's there? And it's like that.
Yeah.
It's like people who name themselves Lodestone. So when you're trying to Google the Lodestone, you end up looking at their profile. Is that cheating? That's frustrating.
So how I've always handled it and how you have to kind of handle it, and this is over the years, because I mean, it was just screenshots. Like people send in screenshots, right? I can't prove everything about it, but I'm going to still rank it because that's the world race, right? They're sending in screenshots. We're working on this level of trust. Is that you assume, unless if something becomes public, that everybody in the world race is at the same level of what is cheating and what's not cheating. And the people who aren't in the world race, it doesn't really matter, right? It's like they're not competing against these other players. We're just making sure the people who are competing against each other actually believe everyone is on that same level of what is fair and what's not fair.
And that's where I think we get into, Garrett's kind of comment of like, you have to sign up for the Olympics in the end there in that case.
Yeah, that's where I started getting in trouble after the fact on Twitter because a couple people were like, I got some real I want to talk to the manager energy from some folks. Like, I can't believe you said that. Like, we're trying to make our friends laugh. Like, I'm there with my buddies. Yeah. We're trying to have a good time. You sound like a bad time, random internet stranger. But
on that note, just a real quick thing. I've always tracked who cleared what when if it's public information, right? They don't sign up for my spreadsheet of who's first, right? They clear it first, they make it public. Well, it looks like they're first. There's enough in there to put them on the ranking. They're on there. And I had a lot of streamers, this was back in the day, who would always be like, their viewers would come up to and be like, hey, what's your world race team? You're like, I'm not racing, even though they would like be in the top 10 teams or whatever. Like, I'm not world racing. Fuck that. Because then they feel like they're up to some standard and they're losing against other people when they're just rating and playing. But they're like in the top 10. And there was a lot of like
a lot of initial D.
Is that it?
The kid is a savant at drifting because he's been delivering tofu down the most technical mountain for years. He doesn't know even know what car he's driving. He knows nothing about cars, nothing about racing. But it's like the whole joke in that whole anime.
I mean, it's relatable for sure. I mean, like the thing is, it came into this thing where I was a guy following social posts and following public information about when teams cleared and stuff. And some people were like, hey, I cleared this. I'm like, hey, what's your team name? You're like, team name? What are you talking about?
That's so sweet. It's so cute. I love it. Oh.
And so I guess I kind of forced the world race into existence by making these people to participate in something they never participated in for a little bit there, right? Just the excitement that these people are actually clearing it so fast, just kind of putting people on a leaderboard. Because that's all I'm doing. They don't have to sign up for it to be on the leaderboard. But for the event where I give out rewards, sponsors are providing these things, and it's because they're showing their footage on stream. And it brings in that attention that the sponsors would want, so they get rewarded by the sponsors. And so it is two separate things. But I still acknowledge, who was the first to clear, even if they were offline or not. I'm not going to assume someone's cheating. Yeah.
The event is valuable because it's entertaining, and people are entertained because there's something to be entertained by. If you're not providing to that entertainment factor, then there's no point. And that's where I was getting
some teams
on over the weekend.
Some teams are like, hey, we'll show can we just show the health bar? Can we just stream the health bar of the boss, and be a part? I'm like, no, you gotta be on the same page with everybody else, unfortunately, to show everything.
My favorite thing in the Olympics is when they show just the photo of the finish line and not the race. I love that. I love it when they do it on the Olympics.
Right. But yeah, I mean, the world race is evolving, and it's becoming like new every single time. There was a point to where I was like, do I even recognize people who are offline? And that was a lot of that happened after top, because of the super team who had the zoom out footage and everything else. And that became a huge controversy. They got harassed like insanely. Some deleted their characters. It was just like this whole thing. Square Enix came out and personally removed their achievements and their titles, all of this stuff. And that sparked a lot of the conversation within the community too. It was already there, but it just fanned those flames. It really did. And I had to kind of consider that. But in the end, it was more of a decision. Like, I can create these two separate lanes, but still track it all.
I like how you handle it. And that's, I really enjoyed kind of being introduced to this and chatting with a lot of folks about, what they're into when it comes to Race the World First. So, yeah, I wanted to bring up the little bit of drama hot water with.
Oh, that's always there.
What do you think of this? What do you think of this?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm more than an open book with all this. You can ask me whatever. I don't really care.
I was just curious because
yeah,
some folks were the energy was interesting. I'm like, I'm new to this. I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring out what I care about. And you know what I don't care about? People who don't show their gameplay.
And it's wonderful to get to hear your story, like how this just basically, in so many words in a different time period, pushed on stage and say, go for it, do it.
Yeah.
And you continued to pick up that ball. And now you find yourself in the situation where people are coming to your stream, coming to your world first and being like, now, wait a minute, I have all sort of corporate standards and ideas that I want to project upon your product. And it really was amazing to watch. And it sounded, did you say there, you actually capture the stream feed as well? You're not just screen capturing, you're doing real-time streamer ingest?
It's way stupider than you think it is. So basically, when they sign up for the event, there is a agreement in that sign up. It's like, if you want to be eligible for the rewards, we're able to restream your content. And so the production literally just takes their Twitch feed or whatever feed it is and places it in a box on the stream. And it's just a recapture of what's there. It's nothing really complicated. We don't, because you can never ask too much of the people who are participating, right? You can't say, hey, you need to stream to this here, this IP here, and go real crazy with it. I think Method tried doing that, and a couple people tried doing that, and I don't think that's the right way. Just let them do what they're doing. Have one person who has a decent computer send the feed up, and that's good enough for us to show on the stream. There's other rules like don't show third-party stuff, don't show things that are against TOS, don't put that stuff on there, right? Keep it appropriate for our charity stream, right? And so, but there's all these kind of rules. It's just as long as they give permission for us to restream it, that is how we handle the feed. So it's probably 10 seconds behind what's actually happening on their stream itself. But it gives you a nice comparison between all these different teams at the same time.
That's rad.
Yeah.
What since you mentioned it, where can folks find your charity, by the way?
Oh, charity, Extra Life, Final Fantasy 14 World Race. You Google it, it'll be fine. No, I could. Final Fantasy 14 World Race Extra Life. I wonder if I do Google that, if it shows the right page to it.
It does, because I'm going to drop a link to it in our chat right now.
Yeah. We raised a little over $18,000 between Echo and myself. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and so we've raised over all these events here, and I could throw it in the actual. Well, you got it already probably, but where is it? There it is. Okay, that's the official one. But we with Echo, they were coming in, and I was like, hey, it'd be cool if we both raised money for Extra Life at the same time, and just kind of collaborated on that a bit. And so they built a page on there. We made a team for the World Race. And it was neat to see that happen because they're coming out from the WoW scene and everything else, and we still felt pretty good about it. But overall, we've raised probably $120,000 for Extra Life over the years.
Jeez, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to think about it. But yeah, I went to one of the hospitals that Extra Life supports, and I was able to see all the programs that they do and everything else. And that was weird to me, right? The charity was like, hey, can you come do a tour of one of our hospitals? And I was like, am I important enough to do that? Right? And they got someone to meet me down there and just walk me through everything and show me all their programs. It's like, all right, well, we'll be supporting these guys for quite a while because they're pretty cool.
Yeah, we did our first Extra Life drive last, right before the holidays. and it went really well. And we got like a personal handwritten thank you letter from the hospital, and we were just like, "What the?"
It's insane. Yeah, they sent one. I probably should put it on Twitter. They sent one here too for this event. There was once. I know some of it like is pre-cut, pre-done, whatever, right? But there's one where they sent a video of one of the kids saying, "Thanks, Frosty and team," and I'm like, I'm fucking dying here.
Oh my goodness!
what do I do? You know, and you know, I'm a father, and I'm very you know, emotional to positive things that come to children or from children, and so
oh my goodness.
Yeah, they got me, dude.
Yeah,
they hooked me. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I spent a month as a kid in a children's hospital, and like, that kind of stuff, like it meant a lot.
It does. That's some scary stuff, man. It really is.
Back then, they had a game room. I think they had like a Sega Genesis, and I was like, "Oh, sweet! I can try and beat Sonic 2 again." Like,
at the hospital here, they have this whole like area that has like video games and everything else, and only kids can go in there, and like specialized attendants. No doctors can go in there. No anyone can go in there. It's like the safe space with like all these like arcade machines and video game consoles and everything else for them just to hang out. They have these robots that kids who are like bedridden that can like control and like go around the hospital and explore and stuff, so they don't feel like they're completely cramped in there.
That's awesome.
They have like these little dog programs, of course, right, where they bring the dogs in for therapy and all that other stuff. It's crazy, the extra steps they go through in the hospital to try to encourage like the spirits of these kids to just keep fighting and keep going. And so I feel like when we do this, we're actually doing some good in the world at the same time. And it makes it a little bit better when we bring in like the volunteers and everything. We're all doing this for this really awesome cause. And when I went to Media Tour, you know, I felt so, I don't know why with Yoshida. I've talked to him so many times. I always get nervous and weird and awkward. And I'm just like, man, I wish I could just have a real conversation with this dude. But then there's like the translation that happens and everything else. And so I awkwardly gave him the little plaque that Extra Life sent about being one of the top fundraisers or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'll put this on my desk. Yeah.
I think I saw your photo. Yeah, you gifted it to him, right?
Oh, that's great. That's so cool.
And so now, you know, it's in his head too. The world race, even though it has like these controversies with Top, it has these controversies with like things that happen within the community, and there's things that are upsetting about it. You know, Yoshida is he wants to support it in some way, but he has this nice reminder, hey, you know, the world race is doing good out there, right? So my video game is creating these communities, it's doing good out there in the world. And so I wanted him to have that. And so that was good.
Damn, good on you. That's cool.
Come full circle to the good vibes of this game. Yeah. It does. It feels good, and like not just because like, you know, we got props from the hospital or whatever, but yeah, it's just it's really easy when you do this line of work like video games. It's like, I don't know, like this isn't important. We're just like fighting with each other about things that don't matter inevitably at the end of the day. But then when you do something like this and you try to affect some positive change, you're like, damn, like look at the power of community. Like it sounds corny, but it's also like it has that effect on you because it is effective. Like it is something that is actually special, and takes what is, you know, seen by a lot as a silly hobby and turns it into something that, you know, actually makes a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, I mean, like doing this stuff too, in the end, shit happens. Things aren't perfect, right? Things will go wrong and whatever. But you still did good, right? There's still good in the world, right? Whatever, someone's cheating or something bad that's happening in the world race, whatever is going on. But the goal of it is to have a platform for the community to be excited about something and do good for other people too. It's like, even if things go wrong, they really didn't go wrong in a way that mattered, right? You did really good stuff in other places. There's still things that like, if there is controversy in the first place really wasn't the first place anymore or something like that, whatever, the stuff that mattered happened. I don't have to worry about, you know, it something being imperfect or there being an issue with the world race, because the goal is to create an event that is has some sort of positive outcome somewhere, and it will always.
Yeah,
so
it's like, did you have fun along the way? Like then it was worth it. Like yeah, maybe you had some nitpicks. Like maybe you went to the concert and you lost your wallet. Like was the concert still a good time? You can get a new car.
You went gambling and you drank with some friends. At least you drank with some friends, right? You lost like $100. Hey, it was an evening out with the guys or whatever, and you drank away a couple $100, right? Fine.
Yeah. If it becomes thousands of dollars, yeah, maybe stop.
There's probably a problem. Call a hotline.
Yeah.
But no.
If you watching the Race the World First ends in months of arguing on Reddit, maybe you're personally experiencing diminishing returns of happiness. But
but think of the content, and in the end, think of the content that you provided that Reddit.
Yeah,
true. Yeah, and then like this race in particular, you have like every once in a while like East gaming magazines and stuff will like do articles on it and stuff, but this one got a lot of hits just because of how close it was, and it was just real popular because of how insane this race was compared to every MMO race that's ever been out there. So there's a lot of attention on Final Fantasy XIV and this competitive PvE scene now, which is going to be interesting to see how Ultimate works out. But God,
when is that happening? When?
Probably around the end of November is, I think, a good estimate for it.
Okay.
That would probably be, because I mean, if you look at like the patch cycle, you're looking at like 4.5 months, something like that. Then there's a month after the patch comes out that Ultimate comes out, because it's always like I think 4 weeks after, 2 weeks, whatever they decide to do. But if you have to guess, it's somewhere around the end of November. So Thanksgiving.
We have time, Kyle.
Time to what? Wait, what are you trying to sign us up for?
Are you guys going to take part in the world race?
Oh, yeah, that's surely what he was going for. Yes, absolutely.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I did see a lot of astrologians.
Tuning into our stream during Race World First will be very much like these early scenes of Happy Gilmore. You're just going to tune and be like, look at these absolute jackapes.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how like much work goes into succeeding in like the world race. It's easy to think, oh yeah, let me just get some really good friends together and we'll just be all in our A game. And then you're like, crap, figuring out mechanics is actually a little hard sometimes, right? It's hard to kind of be in the trailblazing seat. That's why you often see a lot of people who are in lead. They're always kind of there. They know.
That's rad. Well, before we get to the end of the podcast proper, if folks somehow aren't aware of where they can watch you, where can folks catch you?
You can Google Mogtalk.
Hey, that means you use the same name across the board. Good job.
YouTube. It's Mogtalk. On Twitch, it's Mogtalk. On Twitter, it's Frosty Mog. All right, it was Frosty TV stream, but that was too long, so I just put Frosty Mog there now. So you can follow me there, and I'll put World Race updates. You can follow the official Mogtalk Twitter that usually only gets activity every once in a while at Mogtalk Tweets if you want to. But those are the main places. I when I do content, guys, this World Race has really killed like a lot of my ability to properly be a podcaster. So I have 3 episodes I need to just upload to YouTube. It's pretty bad right now. But fortunately, I'm going to be able to get back to it soon. On Saturdays, we do Mogtalk normally at 2 p.m. Pacific, as long as we get a show together and everything else. And so if you want to watch that, we do everything on Final Fantasy XIV. Chocobo Racing, Savage Raiding, tagline. And then you can catch the world races whenever they happen. We always plan it out. My weekly stream might change up a little bit, but mostly what I do during the week is just heal party finder groups for Savage. That's most of my content.
Nice.
Sick.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for making time for this. This was a blast of a talk. I love talking shop, and your background is I just feel a sense of kindred spirits. I'll just
reminiscent. Yes,
for sure. Yeah. Both aging people.
Don't remind me of that. I'm in my prime.
Okay, yeah. Your prime aging time, yeah.
Just get some kids, Garrett. They help you heal young and old at the exact same time. It's
the grayest of the three of us here, and I have no children. I don't want to go stark white before I'm 40.
It's the time warp of it, you know?
No, I'm good.
It's crazy, man. I tell you, my weekends don't feel like weekends sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like I'm stressed the most on the weekends because it's like I gotta find things for my toddler to do. I gotta like plan all that out. During the week, I'm like, just go to work and do my regular day to day.
Yeah.
Nothing too interesting. So yeah.
Rad. Well, thanks again for your time.
No problem.
That wonderful sales pitch on becoming a parent if you're not already one.
Yeah.
And true.
Yeah.
And Kyle, if you've got the graphic ready, a huge thanks to everybody supporting us. You can check out our Patreon at supportourbromance.com. Shout out to our latest patrons. Shout out to our legendary level backers. And check out dogcastsystems.com because we use their systems. Use the code BROMANCE. Get a terabyte NVMe SSD for your trouble. That's dogcastsystems.com. That's going to do it for the official podcast if you're watching live. But the stream's still on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the after show.
This is where we say, hi, hello.
This is where we inform our guests that you can leave whenever you want at this point.
Is this like one of those things like, hey guys, you're at the house, we're all hanging out. Just let you know, I'm going to sleep.
We're not going to sleep. We're just warning you that we usually hang out after chat with Chad a little bit because the chat interaction.
Has your chat been good? I haven't actually been looking at it.
Wonderful. Yeah.
All right. Little bit of people, getting in on the hot takes on streaming versus not streaming during the race to world first. But it seemed like for internet arguments, it was pretty
good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just always going to be there. It's during the entire race. They're like, oh, you should not even acknowledge they exist if they're not streaming. They're clearly horrible and cheating and everything, and it will never go away. That's always the comment.
I get myself in trouble because the second I get one rude reply, then I go into full asshat mode where I'm dude, I don't even really believe what I'm saying, but I'm just matching the energy that I'm receiving.
The thing is, and this happens to me a lot, like in Party Finder or Dungeons or something. Someone will just come off like a complete asshole of whatever they say. I'm like, all right, now I have a goal. How can I just fuck this guy's day over in reverse, right? How can I say something to make him look like a fucking idiot, right? What do I do here? Because it's just like this vengeance of just like, how dare you be such an asshole? Now you're going to see what it really... I have nearly, getting up to 40 years of experience with assholes. I could take this guy down. It's just it turns out I bet it's just some kid that's still in high school or something. I'm just like...
Well, they're the ones that need to get put in their place. You met high schoolers, they're a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, geez.
Strategy at the end of the day.
I don't throw the first salvo of being an asshole, but I will finish it.
Yeah. And I don't know. It just becomes this kind of challenge. Because mostly, when I play online, I'm perfectly just fine, nice, content, everything. I don't really care. Healing and Party Finder humbles you a lot.
I'm sure you've seen some things.
Yeah, I mean, that's when in the game is the most fun, dude. People talk a lot of crap about healing in Final Fantasy 14, but if you just put yourself in bad situations, it's fun.
It's where you're going to get the most variance.
That's the point.
Keep you on your toes the most. I don't think I have the skin for it. Nothing will make me tank again faster than healing in Party Finder. It's like, does anybody know where your mitigations are? What are you? Why, God? But
it's so you just, when you're in Party Finder, you're in these situations, it's always good to just focus on what you're doing, right? And you're just don't care about everyone else effing up. You can't control a dice roll. You have no clue who you're with. You can leave if you want to, but just focus on your own stuff. Give advice if you really want to, but otherwise just kind of do your own thing. And healing, you feel like you have an effect because you're making up for people's mistakes. You're trying to keep everybody zombieing through the whole content. But when you're in an atmosphere where everybody knows what they're doing, it can seem kind of dull. All right, because in comparison to the other jobs, you have not a very interesting rotation to try to perfect. You don't have a lot of movement you have to perfect. You already know what major cooldowns you have to use, whenever you need to use them, and it's pretty dull. But when someone dies, that energy just surges in your body, and you're like, how do I fix this? What's the how do you get out of like a wipe, right? And I like that.
I'm still very like low on the game knowledge. Like everything's constant panic mode. You know, throw on that light speed and just survive whatever's happening around me. But
look, the GCD is so slow. How is it not so easy for you to play this game?
Right? But
what are you talking about?
There's a time in WoW when like I remember I was like, oh my god, finally a tank who sucks. I get to do something. I can finally like just flex a little bit of these healer skills.
Yeah.
I love that element of healing when like you have the fight down and now you're just pulling back and you just get to be like, how low can I let everyone get? How many of these little cooldowns can I start like pulling back on so I can do a little more DPS?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Then you hear Garrett go, and you see his health bar's at 0.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's called limit testing, and it's very important.
Yeah. See, that matters a lot for healing. You got to know how to keep everybody's health above 1, right, or above 0, I guess technically. I think the lowest I got someone down was 3. Okay,
nice.
So I do pretty good with it. But you can't really. You have to kind of overheal when you're with other healers, right? You have no clue what they're doing and if they're actually doing things to keep people alive. When you're a tank or you're a melee, the biggest thing you could do is say, hey, well, I got this role specific cooldown I'm going to use here, right? You use it somewhere else. And otherwise, you're just doing the same shit every time. You're a DPS, you're a tank, whatever. You're doing the exact same thing every single time. Tanks have a little bit of flexibility where they could throw a shield on somebody. They typically don't, but you got some tools you can kind of mimic healing, right?
It's hard to do, honestly. The few times I've tanked, the last thing I want to do is be like intercepting or what's the paladin one, cover. It just
covers one of them.
It feels so sweaty in a dungeon.
Intervention.
Like, no one should be working that hard. Do you find?
Go ahead.
Do you find like Party Finder, like there's a rapport you're building, like people get in there and they're like, oh my, whoa, hang on, Frosty's in the, like, oh my god, he made our group, like we got heals. And
no, if there's like someone in there, it's like the podcast guy, I'm like, fuck, this guy's gonna stop watching my content. It's done. They're gonna realize how shit I am real quick, dude. And they're like, wow, maybe I shouldn't be watching this dude. Maybe he's really not that knowledgeable about the game.
Listen, when your content creation goes up, your game time playing goes down, and that's just the trade-off.
I feel like we're known for not knowing what we're doing, and that's part of the entertainment factor. And I got recognized the other day for the first time, and I was leveling my Black Mage, and I still, even though I think we're known for being goofy, was like, oh god, this isn't even, I'm like level 58, I don't even know what I'm doing. Don't perceive me.
Oh geez, man. Yeah, I do feel that often. I really do. But people will say, "Oh, is that the Frosty Mogboard? Oh, is that the guy who does the podcast?" I'm like, "Who the fuck is that? What's a podcast?" You know, I do that, and then they eventually just go to my channel. Like, yeah, it's that fucker, dude. It's that dude. All right. And so the fun thing is, if you keep that persona of just you're shitty having a fun time, whatever, you know, it's a harder challenge for me because I'm just not as good as hitting buttons, you know, you don't have to be as good. And so when you do good, it's like being a C student and your parents are like, holy shit, that dude got an A. Don't do A's. Here's the thing. Don't always get A's. Get B's and C's. And when you want to impress, get that A, right? When it happens,
expectations.
Yeah.
It does. That's
a lot of work.
That you just described the chat during our charity stream, because we did Warrior of Light Extreme. We had never done before, so we went in blind and we started putting it together pretty quick. It's one of the better performances we've had in a blind extreme run. And I was
Nice,
just
nice.
like, wow, we're getting complimented in chat. And it's because, oh yeah, because normally we're like dying to the first mechanic. Like,
Yeah. When you join a group and it becomes a challenge of getting you through, not just clearing a fight, you're the challenge, right? You're like, if we get this through with Frosty, we've done something special. It feels pretty good.
I've been told, I've got a buddy who was the off tank, I think, in our very first blind extreme, and I just took a shine to them, and they are now my off tank every time I do a blind run of anything. And they've been informing me that they've been getting noticed in dungeons. I'm like, yes,
Nice.
You deserve it because I know what I put you through.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. This game is so interesting, and this is the only time I've had any kind of like recognition anywhere of this sort and level, right? So it does feel weird, like when you're in game or something and someone like sees you. Some people get recognized a lot more than others. It's every once in a while for me. It's not that often.
Are you doing Frosty in game? What's your warriors?
Yeah, Frosty Mogtalk in game. So it's sort of obvious. There's other Frosties that are out there. I wonder, I kind of wonder if these other Frosties out there, because it's not that unique of a name, right? I wonder if someone's like, do you do a podcast? And they're legitimately like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's
or
actually
they do a podcast, but it's not about Final Fantasy 14, and they're like, how do you know?
Yeah. I bet it happens quite a lot, actually, now that I think about it. All those poor Frosties out there, dude.
Yeah, because I was named Garrett over in Blizzard, but my warrior light has a complete nonsense name. So
I probably should do that. I mean, my EU character is Froggy Hotborn.
Okay. Okay.
It works out okay. It works out, and people, but still piece that together, obviously. But.
I mean, I do see you wear the hat, so there is kind of some, energy there.
Yeah.
Some
I mean, I love Moogles. Moogles are great. Mogtalk's a thing, right? And Moogle's the mascot, in a way. That Moogle head is from the 2014 Fan Fest when it was exclusive to people who like either purchased the stream content or actually were at the event. Then they put it on the Mog Station. It's not as exclusive now, but
did it get an up-res for you? Was it part of the rollout, or are you waiting on that?
No, it's just a couple of pixels, dude.
It's still a bit crusty.
It does not look that good, especially not on like Rogadin, which is the character that I play. Right, it stretches it more, right, and so does it. It's that much more obvious. The big eye pixels, the eye line, having just being pixels pieced together.
Honestly, that ball is kind of galaxy brain, though. I bet you can find yourself in a hot moment on screen.
Oh, which one? What
the little ball on top of the hat? Yeah, because when we were doing when we were making our way through the patch content of Endwalker, I dressed up as a yellow cowboy so I could find myself in the void easier. I kept losing myself in the fights.
Oh,
is that why you dressed like the worst Woody cosplay?
Well, we were going to be in a purple dimension fighting a purple guy who I knew was going to be shooting purple. And there's no way my favorite color was going to work out that day.
It's a good idea. I mean, it does help me kind of see myself, but I don't see the other Lalafels hiding under me. And so if there's like a stack mechanic or there's something else, I'll be like, where's the other people at? All right, there's a stack marker that goes over a Lalafell that's under me. I'm like, is it under me? And you have to do this whole wiggle and this whole crazy thing. And so there's some more issues that come on with being a giant character in the game that stands out. Some mechanics are harder to see. I cover up more of the screen. All right.
That's on them for playing Lalafell. Let's be honest.
I mean, that's true. Yeah,
that's what you get.
Yeah. They're small.
That's what you get.
Oh man, but okay. So you guys are working on Dawn Trail. What do you like? How far are you? Well, are you guys like in separate?
We have barely scratched the surface. Yeah, we're doing the second opening zone tomorrow.
Pelu Pelu off to Pelu Pelu land.
And then we've been told that we will probably hit a dungeon on Thursday.
Okay. Well, someone spoiled it for you then. That's lame.
Yeah, that was really weird how we were flown out to see the whole.
Yeah, that's really lame. Yeah.
I wonder what the dungeon will be.
Yeah.
I wonder what it'll be, guys.
Prediction time, chat.
I wonder what bosses will
So how long do you think it's going to take you to get through all that?
I don't know. I don't think we'll do nearly as many videos as we did for Endwalker. So I don't know how familiar you are with our stuff, but we started doing videos as we were going through the MSQ, and kind of like, we didn't really plan to do this, but we just didn't know what else to do. And we were kind of interested, and the story was getting interesting to us. So we started treating it like a book club. We stream together through the MSQ. We read everything that isn't voiced. And then we kind of like make predictions about where we think the story's going, to the hilarious chagrin of those who know where it's going. And so like we have, I don't know, do we have over 100 MSQ videos about our play from Realm Reborn all the way to the end of Endwalker?
We made an insane amount in Endwalker. It's the climax, right? Like every 5 feet, you're tripping over 5 references to a previous expansion thing. But you look at something like Stormblood, we made 3 videos, and looks like that took us from, May to June. So if the wider internet's to be believed, maybe we'll go at a Stormblood pace. But if we start digging something, we'll probably slow down and make some videos.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been told that we tend to not agree with the vast majority of players.
Yeah, there's lots of that like tiptoeing.
No one really agrees with each other right now, to let you know. So you're fine.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, we did the first zone, and like in Endwalker, we almost did a video per zone because like there was something story wise that we were just like, damn, I kind of want to talk about this. But like I like the first zone that we did, but there was nothing in it that I feel like needs to be like discussed or debated. I was just like, cool, that happened. Moving on.
Good luck is all I gotta say.
Thank you.
It'll be interesting to see how that all turns out for you. I mean, when you get to the end, like what does your content creation look like when you're just actually at the end caught up with everybody else?
Actually playing some damn hard boss content because I love it. And honestly, it's probably my favorite thing about this game, and no one told me about it when they were trying to sell me on it. Everyone was like, Garrett, you like WoW, but we hear you're mad about the story sucking. Come play Final Fantasy 14 where the story's good. I'm like, yeah, but I also like raiding. They're like, I don't know. I've never done it. I don't know if it's good or not. And then as we started creating content, we got into Stormblood, and folks were like, listen, you take your sweet ass time getting through the MSQ anyway. You should take a break and you should go do midnight level Shinryu Extreme. And we did that, and I was over the moon. I was like, listen, I was already kind of enjoying this game, but like, why did you all hide this from me? Why didn't you be like, hey, guy who has constantly said that the most fun he's ever had in a video game is raiding and Wrath of the Lich King? Why didn't you tell me that the raiding was actually good in this game?
It's so funny. Like the story is what everybody harps on all the time. The rating gets like mixed criticism by certain players who are coming over from like WoW and everything else. Usually they criticize like the GCD, how slow it feels like when you're leveling and you're playing everything else. They criticize the predictability of the fights and things after you clear it, like after it's figured out that, the song and dance is kind of the same. But they are beautiful fights, man. They're top grade. It's why I love the game so much. It's why I'm so heavily involved in the game. Is because of the rating and everything else that goes on with it. And so I feel like because there's at least a little bit of criticism out there, and there was usually no criticism against the story besides it just being long, right? That it always comes up, people talk about the story and kind of overlook a little bit about the rating stuff. It's like a second thing to look at, which is weird because WoW is the rating, then people sort of don't care about the story sometimes. I mean, there's people who invest a lot of time into it and everything else, but no one was ever like super excited except for like some core content creators who made it their whole thing.
I feel like Legion was last time like everyone kind of agreed like, hey, the story kind of rules, this was good. And then it really fell off.
Well, and even in our perspective, it feels like retention's really high in this expansion. Like you just have a lot of people sticking around. There's not as much cool, see you at the patch going on. Everybody has to check it out.
What I expected to is I'm really curious how I'm going to feel at the end of it. I'm really curious. And if it feels like I'm tiptoeing, I've had a couple people be like, you shouldn't talk about this. I'm like, talking about where my head's at throughout my experience. No, it's literally why anyone started watching the channel. So like I know you want to tell me general. I'm building a straw man here. Except this person does exist. I've seen the comments.
Yeah.
Like internet stranger who I do not know. I know you don't want to spoil me, but you want to refute my it's not so bad with the reasons you didn't like it because you've completed it. But I'm curious how I feel at the end because like heading into this, I'm like, literally everybody told me Realm Reborn was kind of boring. Like it was pretty much like a constant thing I got as I was getting into Final Fantasy 14. Everyone was like, listen, man, we know you read some books. Like you just got to get to the second book. You just like, you know, you've had those books.
Yeah.
And they were right. Like there's parts of Realm Reborn I like, but it set my world on fire. No, it did not. It was just this kind of steady burn. And knowing Endwalker is the end of a 10-year arc, in my head, I'm like, the smart thing to do is to reset. Don't try and be bigger than Endwalker. That's what Marvel tried to do. And that's why until this past weekend with Deadpool and Wolverine post-Endgame Marvel movies have really fallen flat, in my opinion. It's one of the reasons. There's all kinds of things. And some of them I like. I liked the Doctor Strange movie. Anyway. Yeah. So like, I'm like, I think this is what they should do. It probably won't be that exciting. But if what they're actually doing is kind of bringing things back down to like ground level stakes so that they can build up again, I think that's smart. I think I'm going to respect it, even if I'm not going to like jump on the top of a mountain and scream, best story ever.
Yeah. It's important, like when you're going through it, to recognize how you feel in those moments, right? It's not supposed to be, you have to wait until the end before giving your opinion, because the experience is also important, especially when you're playing video games. Like when you're going through it. Yeah, how you feel in that moment.
It is important all along the way, and a critique, no matter at what point of the experience, is a valid critique. It may not be valid to you, the person receiving the critique, but like to someone else, it might be. Like
my favorite thing is like when I was going through the story, like I went through the story in a weekend, right? And I watched every cutscene, I did everything for it, and I would sit there and be like, they're saying something, I would comment on it and be like, this is kind of weird. I wonder if this, and this. And people are talking about, you'll know soon. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm just saying, well, I'm putting my theory crafting thoughts out right now. So you guys have a record of where my mind's at and how I'm thinking at this moment. I know the answer will be there, or maybe it won't be. Maybe I predicted it. Maybe I'm wrong, whatever. But the reason I'm saying what I'm saying is because I'm in the moment. And that's, I want you guys to know how I feel at this stage.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's, to me, that's a sign of like, that's a streamer I want to watch. Like, I want to know where your head's at. Like, I don't want to just watch someone watching a video game. Like, if it was that simple, like everyone would be streaming, everyone would be finding success. Like, I think the streamers that find success, like, find a way to like make it their own.
I mean, that is a whole conversation itself too. The success of streaming, right? What is really success? Because you could do some really stupid stuff and be successful on stream. You could be boring as crap and be successful. I think like the thing that a lot of people have to do is just when you're streaming, just do what you want to do, right? Do what you're comfortable in. If you are not going to be exhausted, you're having fun, whatever. If you do that, right, and you're consistent, the people who like watching whatever the fuck you're doing will say, hey, consistently, I can go and watch this guy be boring. I like watching him be boring, right? Whatever it may be. And over years or time, that will build up. And then if you have ways to expand, hey, look, this guy is really boring over here. Hey, I like watching boring people, and they will come. And if you find ways just to put that out there where people can find you with your boring content, you'll still be successful, even though maybe you're boring, because there's probably people who want to watch it, funny enough. And I feel like that's how I approach it. I am not a successful streamer, but I'm like, I don't consider myself a successful streamer in comparison to the Asmongold's or whatever else are out there, right? But like I feel like it's super important just to do you and let the people who care about you doing you be there, and then everybody's happy, right? Sorry, that went into a whole nother.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
I love talking about this stuff, and I think you're absolutely right. I would caution you against, comparing yourself to literally like some of the.
I grouped with him at the Endwalker media tour. They put us in a group together, and we were doing some of the dungeons together. It was awkward a little bit. Do you guys know a lot about Rich?
Just the bad
Campbell.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, he was in my group too. It was me, before the bad stuff, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
And so we're playing together, and I was hearing his non-stream like conversation. I guess when you're talking to someone and they're not streaming and they're just being a human being playing a game with you, it was kind of interesting to see that and talk to him. But yeah, Asmongold's like a whole different thing, right?
Yeah,
but you would consider him successful as shit.
Well,
Dude.
yes. Absolutely. But there's different. I frequently when folks are like, "Oh, you stream," and I get a sense that they think it's just like a hobby thing. I'm like, no, like it's a job. I'm like working class successful. Like, I'm not
I'm like Wendy's minimum wage successful. Okay.
It pays my bills. I got to send shit to the IRS.
Yeah.
Like I'm at that level.
You should be sending stuff to the IRS. Yeah.
That kind of,
I have a savings for the first time in my adult life. Things are going well enough.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to like hit that success, right? If you're hitting a point where you're making content, you're happy about making content, and it's doing good for you in your life, all right, it's great. And I can't talk to anyone who I've never worked at a job or been in a group where I volunteer to tell them that I stream. Like I try to leave that can of worms closed, because when it comes up, that is literally the conversation for the rest of the time you're around whoever it is. But yeah.
I usually say I'm an editor. I edit videos, Premiere, boring stuff. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It depends. Like, how long am I stuck next to this person? Like, if it's an airplane, I'll tell you everything. We're gonna be chatting for a while. Screw it. Yeah.
I mean, you tell the person next to you on an airplane your darkest secrets. You're never gonna see them again.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't
Fight
matter.
Club got it right. I'm not like disposable friends. Like,
yeah, you temporary chatting partners. No real issues could come up after those conversations. So you're fine.
Unless you live online and they can easily find you, then maybe it could come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
Just saying. Yeah, I do production. Benton Chad has it. You got it.
Do production, yeah. Oh, production for who? Me.
Small business entities.
Yeah.
You tell them everything. You just don't tell them that you're the YouTuber. You say, "Oh, I'm an editor for what? Oh, for a YouTube channel. Oh, cool. This is cool. It's pretty successful. Yeah.
Which one do I watch?"
They won't look it up.
Oh, anytime I get someone young, I'm like, "No, you definitely don't. You 100% don't watch my channel."
Yeah. What's funny? Like the people, like family and friends that I have that know about me streaming and everything, they don't watch shit I do. They are uninterested in every piece of content I put out there. So like all of my close friends and family, nah, they go do other things for entertainment. Only like a few people maybe watch it from like my real outside of internet world versus the internet world.
I've done it once or twice. I have a friend who plays Final Fantasy. He'll be like, "Hey, what do you think of the housing scene?" I'm like, "Oh, I did this video about net." I'm not watching your damn video. You tell me in text.
Yeah, no, I'm a real friend with you.
140 characters or less right now. What you think of the housing scene?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'll leave you guys to it. I'll go to the bathroom and do some raiding here. But you guys have been fantastic. I'm glad we got to sit down and talk, because we didn't get to talk at all at the media tour, really. It was good to get to know you guys.
You were 100% like my vibe. Like,
yeah, thanks for joining us. This is great.
I mean, this is all I do with Mogtalk. I bring people on. I don't write scripts. I used to do it. Sometimes I do it depending on who's coming on, if they're going to be like nervous or something. It's weird when people are nervous. And you just sit down and you just start talking. Just fuck anything else, right? And wherever the conversation goes, that's the show.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then a kiss, like some people in chat want right now, but
they always want the Xeno. God damn it, dude.
It's just shipping constantly. Just shipping never ends, and there's always one person.
They're Final Fantasy 14 players.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
You tell them that Thagrid's going to die, and they're like, I'm blocking you from every piece of content that I ever watch again, right? Look, by the way, just in case you're curious, that was just a general statement, literally nothing to do with anything. All right. And this is just a broad statement. Please don't take that as like
I would not have given it a second thought. Honestly,
literally nothing. Okay.
No, honestly, if I thought that was a legitimate spoiler, my response would have been finally.
About time.
Bring some stakes back to this damn game.
Oh god. All right.
On a show, I don't actually want every character to die.
You're good. You're good.
I've been blocked a few times because of statements like that.
You probably weren't going to have a great conversation with those people.
Yeah, it's fine.
You probably
it's not like I'm
going
to
hit it off.
All right. I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for your time again.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Have a good one.
Great talking with you.
Bye, guys.
Have a good stream.
This is going to break. It's everything. Everything's breaking.
Everything's exploding. Oh, it's the Garrett forehead display.
No, actually, it's more like a side head thing. This might actually, let's see. Can I?
All right.
Did this? Oh, look at that.
Oh, look at that. Look at it. Ooh.
Look at that. That's not too bad.
Live production.
Yeah.
I still look tan. How have I not lost my tan yet? Into this. I need to spend more time outside.
Can't help you there.
I don't know, man. I don't know. And we haven't seen the sun in 48 hours, so I am so done with the rain.
It's a lot of water for sure.
I am so sleep deprived. It was nothing but just shit hitting the house all night. Every time I started to doze off, there'd just be and I just
we're in very new construction. I was actually unnerved by how quiet it's been in my place. So
I'm jealous.
We had to look up last night the difference between a tornado warning and tornado like possibility and like watch. Yeah, because warning to me is still pretty low caliber, but that's not the case.
Yeah, no. Warning means take shelter.
Yeah, so we were watching a culmination of all 6 Sharknado movies on YouTube. And our phones go off, and we went downstairs and got the kids and did the whole thing.
Did you see my tweet?
Yeah, I saw you were watching Twitter, so we both kind of had the same like mindset.
Twister, yeah, Twister. I hit play, and the second I hit play on Twister, just that horrible sound that the fucking emergency thing makes on your phone, and it just says tornado warning has been issued for your area for the next 30 minutes, and I'm just like. Oh my God! Take shelter. Did you get the lawn chairs? I mean, that's pretty much all you have to do in Florida. There are no basements, so you're kind of screwed. Basically, the recommendation in Florida is like go into a closet you can fit in. Is the recommendation here? So we moved from the living room to the bedroom. We brought all the animals with us and closed all the doors so that if we had to go jump in the closet, we had everyone with us. And that's what we did. And it was really spooky for about those 30 minutes, man. Like we had the movie on and I had to pause it and we just sat there in not silence for 30 minutes because the wind was just absolutely screeching outside the window.
We made a good time.
I couldn't have the movie on at the same time because I couldn't tell what was the movie and what was actually happening.
We're doing a performance, right? Like we've been very cautious, very cognitive that anytime we hear thunder, we're like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Because it simply didn't happen in the Pacific Northwest. We had winds, we had tornado force winds, but no thunder at all.
Yeah.
And so with kids, we're like, wow, oh, cool. Count it out. Yeah, that's far away. All right.
So they don't grow up afraid of it.
Exactly. So we're, downstairs near the class. Lord, we're doing like, yeah, right. I've got one kid. She's only one kid. And we're just like, making it as fun as possible while Kristen and I are just exchanging looks and trying not to read our phone the whole damn time. But
that's fantastic.
It all worked out. Perimeter's very happy. The Gator, he's overjoyed with the new real estate he's gained.
Oh well, he's got so much more room for activities now. So he just increased the square footage.
Yeah, he's getting around.
Oh yeah. Also, I'm sure a lot of the animals are confused and probably easy pickings right now.
He got pecked in the face by a sandhill this morning. I saw it happen.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah, he was trying to sneak in, and
the sandhill was just like
popped him.
Off.
Yep.
Yeah, I saved a baby snake from a bird right before the storm started up yesterday. I was going out to go get something, and I noticed a bird pecking at something in the road. And I pull up, scare the bird away, and it was just this little snake. And he was just like, "Holy shit, dude, thank you." Just had this look of, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you showed up." And I kept the car there until he made it back into the swamp. So it's like, "You go, dude." Yeah, I know, poor hungry, but dude, it's Florida. That bird is
he'll find
another meal.
He'll find other things.
Yeah, it was just like, what was going on here? It was just this little.
Not robbing him of a meal too bad.
People are kind of birds. People aren't kind of snakes. The snake, I feel a snake is higher on the list of needing intervention.
Earned it.
We got some 26-month celebrations by Serafina. Thank you for that at the start of the stream. Suna was also celebrating 26 months. That was a long time to hang out with us. Seriously, thanks for the support. Caltian, hope the episode lived up to your expectations. I'm looking forward to this one. Kit super chatted during the stream. Speaking of podcasts, did you hear that Scott's rebooting the Instance next month? I did hear about that.
I saw his release video about it. It's once a month. He's got a crew lined up and all.
Oh, is that what he's doing? Okay.
Yeah. It's like a once a month thing.
All right. Cool. I'm gonna at least play through the story, so maybe I'll tune in. I'm not in a WoW content headspace right now.
No, and I'm trying to. I did do some sick Warhammer painting this week, and I was proud of. So I got that done. That felt good. But I'm very much in the Final Fantasy mindset at the moment.
Yeah. I was what'd I do? Oh, I played I finally tried Balatro. I don't know how to pronounce
the poker game?
The poker game. That game is fun, man. I think despite being real cards, you would enjoy it. Because it's essentially a roguelike deck builder. Yeah, that game was good. And then I played a bunch of Infection-Free Zone, which I'm kind of in love with right now. I think it's on sale for $15 early access on Steam. Have you heard of this game, Kyle?
No. Oh, yes. Yes, I have seen this. This kind of looks like my jam.
For chat, if you haven't heard of it, it is like a zombie base builder survival game, but it uses real world Google Maps data. So you can decide to build a base anywhere in the real world, which means you can like load up your home neighborhood and run a zombie survival camp like scenario.
Are the buildings accurate enough or just the roads?
Kind of. The roads are accurate. The lots where the buildings are is accurate, but the buildings they're kind of randomized. There's a lot more like apartment style structures than like actual homes. Like I loaded up our neighborhood and it was mostly like apartment style structures in each lot instead of a house with a standard roof type thing.
Okay.
However, I now have like 6 hours on the infection-free zone of the Magic Kingdom because I loaded up Disney, and the castle is a fucking castle, and that's my headquarters. So I'm set up in Cinderella's castle, and the entire map of Disney is more accurate than you think it would be. The Haunted Mansion kind of looks like the Haunted Mansion in front, and then it automatically made the ride building part of the structure. So it's actually one of the bigger buildings that you can do something with.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's cool. I am surprised by it. It's really early on. It says it uses
single
Midjourney.
player.
Oh, what a shame. But it's an interesting game.
Single player only too, so
it is single player only, and the maps are smaller than I hoped they would be. Like you click, essentially it takes the real world and puts it into a grid system, and so you don't have control over what it drops in the grid. And so all maps appear to be a 3x3, so you end up with a 9 grid map. And so it's like for me with the Disney map, like it's not dead center of the playable space. It's kind of up in the corner, which means there's a bunch of like dead area with nothing because it's the woods around Magic Kingdom. So there's little interesting things about that, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it for how much I paid for it.
Interesting.
So
I played and beat the Shredder's Revenge with the 4-year-old over the weekend.
Oh, sick. Dude,
Turtles beat 'em ups is my shit.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Love Turtles beat 'em ups. That was my jam growing up with my brother and my cousins. Oh. Lissa super. Hi Frosty. Everyone remember to like the stream. Thank you, Lissa. Appreciate it. Against the Storm. I didn't play Against the Storm. You were really into that, right, Kyle? Eric's talking about it in chat.
Yes. Yeah. One of those where, it started compounding things and I went, oh my goodness, this is becoming a real game. And I didn't go back to it. No insult to it. I literally moved. So I have not picked it up again, but I did really enjoy it. Particularly for being a combat free. It was one of those indie games where you're like, yeah, combat would have made this terrible. Let's just bypass all that. Good idea.
I was really enjoying Manor Lords, but then I just kind of got to a point where it was it was pulling teeth trying to figure out what to do next because it was so systems deep and so like a complete lack of hand holding, which depending on the game, I like or dislike. And Manor Lords definitely got to a point where I was just like, I'm spending most of my time reading Reddit posts about this game than actually playing this game. And that's when I stopped playing.
It's a balancing act.
I love the freaking city building in that game. It's so organic. It's really cool the way that game like simulates its building, but it needs to be at least, I think I need like an increase of 50% player usability. Like it's just a little too obtuse. Oh. Type of game to have 50 Wikipedia pages. That's what it feels like. Yeah. Except that game is still technically in early access. So like when I was playing it, like which was the week after launch, information was still pretty sparse. So it was slow going. But I'm hoping that game gets fleshed out because I'd like to go back to it and spend more time with it because that was scratching an itch. That means I played more strategy games this year than anything else. Now that I think about it.
That's awesome.
It's been, yeah.
I know we'll probably be, talking some video games on next week's podcast. Can we talk about the thing coming up? Is that on the books? Is that good?
What thing coming up?
Oh, another guest we have coming up. Are we good to announce that?
Cool. Do you have the thumbnail?
Yeah,
we can announce our next podcast guest.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So our next podcast guest, you might be familiar with. Just look at this thumbnail and enjoy. Not next week though. Not next week. Did I drop a date on that?
No, this will be on the 19th. So still a little bit of time, 2 weeks out.
Yes. So next week will be Kyle and me. Unless, I don't know, like Jesse just decides to like jump in from the top rope and suplex his way into the podcast. It'll be the two of us. And then Husky's coming on. And it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. 500%. And this was a good time. I had a good time. Oh, what's winning on the Jackbox? Jackbox looks like it has won.
Yep. So Wednesday, we're going to be playing some Jackbox. Code will be posted for the patrons. So I will be making basically a chat. I mean, we'll use the Discord most likely. I'll let you all know, but there I'll post the code. For stream, it'll go down, and then the viewers will have a voting code as well for some Jackbox games on Wednesday.
Okay, cool.
So tomorrow is the Pelu business. I think I got
the Pelu zone, whatever zone that is. That's the other zone we saw, right, at Mediator? That'll be the other zone that we saw?
Yes. I don't know if it's the one with the goblins in it. No, I think we also saw the one with the big mountains and stuff like that. So we got to see a number of zones.
So this is a zone we haven't seen yet.
I think this is like the southwesty looking zone. But there's two other zones we may have previewed, or maybe this had the goblin jars in it. Anyway,
I thought there's only two zones at Mediator.
Or maybe that was all. Yeah, maybe that is all that one. And we could fly too, so we don't know the divide of the zones very well either. So, yeah. So that would have messed with our perspective quite a bit.
We did in fact see the zone of Mediator. Okay, cool.
So the ability to fly has definitely augmented our memories. But that'll be happening tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean we were level 100. Like. I'm still trying to do the new shit that I could do as a Dark Knight at Mediator, and I have access to none of it. So my brain is still just like, why aren't I doing my cool combo? And I think it's like level 96 or something when that comes online. So yeah, I still got a Mediator brain. But yeah, everyone go enjoy Garrett Servant or Corn Garrett
Like, what are we calling that, Kyle? Gear servant? Gentleman behold Garrett?
You're definitely, there's got to be corn in there because you are corn. Cob Lord.
Garrett Cob Lord?
Yeah. Corn streamer. He's the corn streamer. Gorn.
I'm the Gorn servant. Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. The hair servant. Oh, that's great. Well, we'll see you tomorrow for that, starting at 1 p.m. time right here on the YouTube channel and maybe some other places.
Yeah, and before we go, I do have the extremely sad business to announce just because their family and friends want you all to know so you all can help those who need to know. Huge member of the FC, Faye 8, a million olds, has passed in their sleep last Tuesday night. And we're absolutely rocked and devastated by this. If you know anyone who communicated with Faye, they were an absolutely huge member of the FC. They ran a ridiculous amount of the ongoings around here, including the fairs, the skits with the vendors that happened around, the retainers, and their losses keenly felt. Absolutely. The family is going through their PSN account right now, trying to contact everyone that they may have communicated with so they can let them know. And we'll let you all know as we get information about plans for the future. A lot of people want to do a lot of things. There's some great ideas happening right now in the Free Company Discord. If you want to participate, if you want to help out with those things, things are being planned. But we'll let you know what's being done for Faye. An absolute shock, and I wanted to make sure you all heard it from me, from us, and we'll certainly be letting others know too over the next week. So
yeah, and if we hear any more about anywhere to like send anything, or if there's any types of like respects being paid somewhere, we'll definitely share that information. So
yeah,
keep your eye out. But yeah, for right now, just want to just remember Faye, and definitely if you know anyone was friends with Faye, in game or in this community that hasn't been made aware, just help get word out there so we can give Faye the respect that Faye deserves.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's really just gut-wrenching news.
So thanks for taking the time here at the end with me for this. And I appreciate y'all, Pothy, Lenko. I appreciate everybody who was a part of the Free Company with them. It clearly meant a lot to them. I've heard as much from their family and friends that we were spoken of often. And I appreciate y'all being an awesome part of their life too. So,
yeah. So thanks again, everybody. And again, we'll just keep your eye on announcements and stuff. We'll share more information as there's more information to share.
But for now, you all have an awesome evening. Tell your loved ones you love them for sure. And take
if
care.
You got an internet friend, tell your internet friend what they mean to you, because I wish I had. Wish I told Faye how much I love their shenanigans. So, and if you're looking for some way to pay respects to Faye, I would say make a ridiculous retainer that your friends can see. And
certainly jump in that FC chat. There's a lot being planned in there as well. So on the Discord there, you can find a link in the description of this video.
Yeah. So we're going to go offline now.
See you soon.
Love you all.